The microphone was still warm from Adam's hand when my daughter crossed the aisle and took the reading away from me. Not metaphorically. She reached for the cream-colored pages I was holding, waited until I loosened my fingers, and folded them against her clipboard. "Your voice isn't right for the ceremony," Sophie said. The chapel went so quiet I could hear the air conditioner click off. I looked past her at the rows of empty chairs. There were white ribbons tied to every fourth one because tying them to every chair had looked, according to Sophie, like a craft store exploded. Adam stood near the altar with his hands in his pockets. His mother, Vivian, was holding 2 purses and a box of emergency safety pins. Sophie lowered her voice, which somehow made it worse. I thought it would work. I really did. 10 months earlier, after my thyroid surgery, Sophie had sat beside me in a speech therapist's office and squeezed my hand while I forced air through my throat to make one clean vowel. She knew exactly what it cost me to stand at that microphone. What I couldn't understand was why she had asked me to do it in the first place. I'd made it through the first paragraph, not gracefully, but I'd made it. The trouble came in the second. When I reached the line Tom had underlined twice in his old book, my voice caught. I stopped, took the breath I'd been taught to take, and started again. Sophie had been standing halfway down the aisle. "Mom," she called, "could you keep the pause a little shorter?" "I need the pause." "Right. I know. I just mean, if you can." I tried the sentence again. The microphone picked up everything. The dry click in my throat, the breath before the first word, the little hum of effort I didn't know I made until I heard it come back through the speakers. Sophie winced. It was quick. Someone who hadn't raised her might have missed it. Then she walked toward me. Now she held the pages against her clipboard while I stood behind the lectern with nothing in my hands. I felt strangely underdressed. "It's the sound system," she said. "It exaggerates the breathiness. The breathiness is part of my voice." "I know that." Adam moved one step forward, then stopped. He had the look of a man approaching a dog whose collar had caught on a fence. "Maybe we could adjust the microphone," he said. "We already adjusted it," Sophie told him. The sound technician, a tired man named Kyle, who had spent the last 20 minutes trying to prevent feedback, raised one finger. "I can bring the gain down a little more." "But then people in the back won't hear her," Sophie said. Kyle lowered his finger. He was a professional. Vivian set the purses on a chair. She wore a pale blue suit she'd bought for the rehearsal dinner because Sophie had asked everyone to dress coastal casual, a phrase Vivian and I had spent 2 weeks trying to interpret. "What if Lena reads from the front row?" she asked. "Without the microphone?" Sophie exhaled through her nose. "It's not just the volume." There it was. I stepped down from the lectern. My shoes made small, hard sounds on the stone floor. I'd bought them because Sophie said my usual black flats looked too much like something I would wear to a funeral. The new ones pinched my little toes and had already rubbed a raw place against my heel. "What is it then?" I asked. Sophie looked at me, and for half a second she wasn't a bride with a clipboard. She was my daughter caught doing something she wished I hadn't noticed. "You're going to get emotional. It's a wedding." "I know, but there's a rhythm to the ceremony." Vivian glanced at Adam. Adam examined the ceiling beams. I almost laughed. Tom would have. Rhythm was what Sophie called control when she wanted it to sound artistic. "You don't want me to pause," I said. "I don't want people to think something's wrong. Something is wrong with my voice. You were there when they explained it." "That's not what I meant." "No?" "No." She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Mom, please don't make me say this 15 different ways." I looked at the pages in her hand. She had printed them on the same paper as the invitations, warm white with a faint deckled edge. At the top she'd typed, "Reading, Lena," in small gray capitals. Beneath the passage, in parentheses, she had written, "Pause." Look at Sophie and Adam. Smile. I wondered whether she'd cross out my name or print the whole thing again. "Who's reading it?" I asked. "No one has to." We can cut it. You chose it 6 months ago. I know. It was your father's. I know, Mom. Vivian came closer, moving carefully, as though emotion were a spill she didn't want to track through the chapel. I can read it, she said. If you want it included. She looked at me when she said it, not Sophie. That small courtesy almost undid me. Sophie's shoulders dropped. Would you? That would solve everything. Not everything, I thought. But I said, Vivian has a lovely voice. Vivian didn't accept the compliment. Her mouth tightened. Sophie was already flipping through her schedule. Okay, great. We'll have Vivian come up after the music, then Adam's vows, then mine. We need to run the exit once more because the doors are sticking. I stayed where I was. Sophie. She looked up. Do you still want me to walk in with the family? The question surprised all of us, including me. Of course I do. Her face changed, wounded now, as if I had accused her of something cruel. You're my mother. The way she said it made motherhood sound like assigned seating. I nodded and went back to the front pew. Vivian sat beside me with the pages on her lap. Sophie had handed them over without my seeing. For the next 40 minutes, I watched my daughter rehearse happiness. She was good at it. Sophie had always been good when there were marks on the floor telling her where to stand. She entered on Adam's arm because the actual processional order was too complicated to reconstruct without the rest of the family. She adjusted her speed at the third pew. She reminded Adam to turn toward her before taking her hands. You keep facing Pastor René, she told him. You're not marrying Pastor René. That explains the paperwork problem, he said. Pastor René laughed. Vivian laughed. Even Sophie gave him a reluctant smile. I loved him a little for that. Adam's humor was dry and usually arrived one beat after Sophie had tightened a room. He never challenged her directly if he could make her loosen her grip instead. Most of the time it worked. That afternoon, it didn't. When Vivian went to the lectern, she read the passage clearly. Her voice carried to the back without strain. She paused in the place Sophie had marked and looked up at the couple. It was beautiful. That was the worst part. If Vivian had stumbled, if the microphone had squealed, if one of the decorative candles had set fire to a ribbon, I could have blamed logistics. Instead, my replacement worked exactly as intended. I sat with my purse in my lap and pressed my thumb into the clasp until it left a crescent in my skin. 6 months before, Sophie had brought the old book to my kitchen table and opened it to the page Tom had marked. The book had lived on my nightstand since his death. Its green cloth cover was faded along the edges, and the binding had cracked in 2 places. Tom used to read with a pencil, underlining sentences and arguing with authors in the margins. Beside one paragraph, he had written, mostly true, which was the closest he ever came to unconditional praise. Sophie laid her hand over that note. I want this in the ceremony, she said. I was sorting envelopes then because she had decided digital invitations felt impersonal after spending 3 weeks designing a wedding website. Pastor René can read it. I want you to. I looked at her. At that point, I still avoided speaking to unfamiliar people when I could. I ordered groceries online because repeating paper bags to a distracted cashier could ruin an otherwise decent afternoon. At restaurants, I let Sophie tell the server what I wanted. She did it without asking, and I let her because gratitude can turn into a bad habit just as easily as resentment. You know, I sound different now, I said. You sound like you. That's a very daughter answer. It's the correct answer. She pushed the book toward me and smiled. Not her camera smile, her real one, slightly crooked on the left. You read this to me when Eric left. I remember. You stayed on the phone all night. You were crying so hard I thought you'd stop breathing. I was dramatic. You were on a bathroom floor drinking warm white wine through a straw. I couldn't find a glass. You had just moved. You couldn't find pants. She laughed, then pressed her lips together because even 7 years later, certain memories had teeth. I want your voice there, she said. That's the point. For 6 months, I believed her. I practiced in my bedroom with the door closed. I marked the places where I needed breath. I carried a copy to speech therapy, and my therapist, Marisol, made me read it while walking slowly around the room so I'd stop treating every sentence like a staircase I might fall down. Sophie asked me about it constantly. Have you practiced? Yes. With a timer? No. Mom, it's a reading, not a hostage video. She sent me a voice memo demonstrating the pace she wanted. She added the stage directions. She bought the deckled paper. Each new instruction made me nervous, but I mistook her attention for faith. That was my part in it. Sophie didn't invent all my mistakes by herself. By the time the rehearsal ended, the chapel windows had turned black. Adam and Pastor Renee went to check the stubborn doors. Kyle coiled cables. Sophie stood beneath the arch arguing with the florist on speakerphone about whether 12 missing ivory roses could be replaced with white ones without creating a cold undertone. Vivian touched my elbow. "I'm sorry," she said. "You didn't take it from me. I can tell her I won't do it. Then she'll cut it. Maybe she should." I looked across the chapel at my daughter. She was pacing now, one hand pressed to her forehead, speaking to the florist with the calm, terrifying politeness she used when she believed someone else had failed. "No," I said. "Tom's words belong there if she wants them." Vivian studied me. "And you? That seems to be tomorrow's seating question." Her eyebrows rose. It was meaner than I usually allowed myself to be, and Vivian didn't pretend otherwise. She gave one slow nod, accepting both the joke and the wound beneath it. At the rehearsal dinner, Sophie seated me between her college roommate and Adam's Uncle Martin, who wore hearing aids but refused to turn them on in restaurants. Every time I spoke, he leaned toward me and shouted, "What was that?" By dessert, I had stopped trying. Sophie circulated from table to table, touching shoulders, solving problems, glowing whenever someone lifted a phone. Once she caught my eye from across the room. Her smile faltered. I thought she might come over. Instead, she pointed toward the centerpiece and mouthed, "Are you taking those home?" I looked at the glass vase, the candles, and the little bundle of rosemary tied with twine. There were 18 more just like it waiting to be packed after dinner. For years, Sophie had never needed to ask whether I would stay. I shook my head. She stared at me, certain she had misunderstood. I picked up my purse, stood in my painful shoes, and went home before the coffee was poured. At home, I took off the shoes in the kitchen and left them exactly where they fell. One landed upright. The other rolled under the table like it had tried to escape first. There were boxes stacked along the dining room wall, all labeled in Sophie's handwriting. Kitchen, open first, bathroom, Adam work, Sophie work. Things they'd moved over early because their apartment renovation had begun with a harmless leak under the sink and expanded into a contractor saying, "As long as we have the wall open." 6 weeks, Sophie had promised. She and Adam would spend 3 nights at an inn on the coast after the wedding, then stay with me until the apartment was finished. I had cleared the guest room closet, emptied 2 drawers in the bathroom, and moved Tom's old desk into my sewing room so Adam could work behind a closed door. My phone buzzed on the counter. "Did you leave?" Before I could answer, another message arrived. "We're packing everything now. I thought you were staying." Then, "Are you feeling okay?" That was Sophie's way. Accusation first, concern second, which allowed her to remember herself as concerned. I typed, "I'm home, tired. See you tomorrow." 3 dots appeared immediately. They vanished. They came back. Finally, she sent a heart, pink and perfectly symmetrical. I set the phone face down and went upstairs. The green book was on my nightstand. I had left it open that morning, thinking I might practice once more before the rehearsal. Tom's pencil marks leaned beneath the sentences. His handwriting filled the margins with cramped opinions no one had requested. Beside the passage Sophie had chosen, he'd written, "Mostly true." I ran one finger over the words. The paper had softened where he used to hold the book open with his thumb. For 34 years, Tom had been the person who waded through my pauses, although back then they were usually because I was angry and trying not to say something that would cost us a lamp. I shut the book. "Don't start," I told him. The house didn't answer, but it had his timing. My dress for the wedding hung from the closet door, silver blue and more fitted through the waist than anything I'd worn since his funeral. Sophie had selected it after rejecting 4 others. The first was too dark, the second photographed purple, the third had beading that might catch on her lace, the fourth, which I loved, was apparently giving governor's wife. "What governor?" I'd asked. "Any governor." She had stood behind me in the department store fitting room, gathering the silver blue fabric at my back with both hands. "This one," she'd said. "You look beautiful." I had believed that too. I slept badly and woke before the alarm. At 7:12, Sophie sent the day's schedule, even though I already had it printed and attached to my refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a lobster. At the bottom, she had added, "Love you, big day." Nothing about the reading. I made toast, burned it, and ate it over the sink. By 9:30, I was driving toward the hotel with my dress hanging from the hook behind me. The cream-colored pages were not in my purse. I checked twice at red lights, though I had watched Sophie give them to Vivian. The bridal suite smelled of hairspray, coffee, and hot curling irons. Women moved around in pale robes while 2 makeup artists unpacked enough brushes to paint a courthouse. Everyone was an adult, but the room had the bright, nervous energy of people who had been told fun would begin at a specific time. Sophie sat near the window in a white robe, with bride embroidered across the back. Her hair was pinned in sections, making her look like a very beautiful radio tower. She saw me in the mirror. "You came." It slipped out before she could stop it. Was that uncertain? No, of course not. She turned in the chair. "I just meant you're early. I'm 6 minutes early." "I know. That's early for you. My hair appointment was at 10. I put my dress bag in the closet." Sophie watched me do it, then turned back toward the mirror. Her college roommate, Dana, handed me a paper cup of coffee. Dana had been at our house so often during Sophie's 20s that she still opened my refrigerator without permission. She had a sharp chin, a warm laugh, and no talent for pretending not to notice tension. "I heard about the centerpiece mutiny," she said. "It wasn't a mutiny. I went home." That's how mutinies start. One woman refuses to transport Rosemary, and suddenly there's no monarchy. Sophie closed her eyes while the makeup artist brushed powder across her forehead. "Can we not call my wedding a monarchy?" Dana sipped her coffee. "What term do you prefer?" "Don't answer that," I told her. Sophie almost smiled, then her eyes met mine in the mirror again, and the room between us tightened. "Mom, can we talk later? You're the one who brought it up. I didn't bring anything up exactly." The makeup artist froze with a brush near Sophie's cheek. Dana took my elbow. "Come show me your dress before I decide to steal it." It was an obvious rescue, but I let myself be rescued. In the closet, between garment bags and stacked shoeboxes, Dana lowered her voice. "What happened? Ask Sophie." I did. "She said the microphone wasn't compatible with your vocal range." I stared at her. Dana's mouth twisted. "I know. It sounds like the microphone hired a lawyer." She gave the reading to Vivian. "Oh," that was all. A soft, honest syllable. It helped more than outrage would have. "Don't make this a thing today," I said. I wasn't planning to. "Your face is making it a thing. My face has never respected authority." I unzipped the dress bag. Dana touched the sleeve. For what it's worth, very dignified, mild lieutenant governor at most. I laughed before I could stop myself. The sound came out rough and short, but it came. When we returned, Sophie was staring at her phone. She had received a photograph of the ceremony programs and discovered that the ivory ink looked gray under the chapel lights. "It looks like a memorial service," she said. Adam, who had arrived to drop off a box and had been ordered not to look directly at her, stood in the doorway with one arm across his eyes. "I can't see anything," he announced, "but I'm sure the ink is devastating. It's not funny. It can be 2 things." Sophie looked ready to throw her phone. Then she noticed me. "Your hair looks good." It had not been done yet. Dana coughed into her coffee. Sophie pressed her fingers to her temples. I'm sorry. I'm trying. I know, I said. That was true, which didn't make it enough. I saw Vivian at the chapel just before the family photographs. She stood alone beside the lectern, reading the pages silently. She had changed into a sea-green dress with a narrow belt and her hair curved neatly under her chin. When she noticed me, she lowered the pages. I can still refuse, she said. And then what? Sophie can ask Pastor Renee. She wants you. She wanted you. I adjusted the clasp on my bracelet, read it well. Vivian's expression tightened. I don't mean that the way it sounds. How else can it sound? I don't know. I'm working with limited equipment. She looked at me for a moment, then reached out and fixed the back of my collar. My mother used to say the cruelest things in a pleasant voice, she said. It took me years to understand that tone doesn't change the sentence. I met her eyes. Are we talking about Sophie? We're talking about voices. Before I could answer, the photographer called for us. Sophie arranged the pictures almost as carefully as the ceremony, mother and daughter, bride with both mothers, bride and groom with both mothers. Adam kissed Vivian's cheek and made her swat him away. When he stood beside me, he whispered, "You look terrific. Thank you, and I'm sorry about yesterday." The photographer lifted her camera. Sophie turned sharply. Sorry about what? Adam looked at her. The photographer lowered the camera an inch. My mother's seating confusion, he said. There had been no seating confusion. I admired him for lying badly in my defense. Sophie studied us both, then smiled toward the camera. All set, she said. The ceremony began at 4:03 because one of the rear doors stuck, and Pastor Renee refused to allow the processional to start with two men kicking it. I walked in alone after Vivian and before the attendants. The chapel was full now. Faces turned toward me, kind and curious. My instinct was to look down, but I kept my eyes on Sophie's empty place at the front. At my seat, a program waited on the cushion. It listed only a reading, with no name beneath it. I sat. When Sophie entered, every person in the room stood. She looked beautiful, and not in the managed, photographed way I had expected. She looked frightened. Her chin trembled once before she saw Adam, and then her whole face opened. For that moment, I forgot the microphone. I saw the woman who had sat barefoot at my kitchen table filling out divorce papers. The woman who called me after her first date with Adam and spent 20 minutes criticizing the restaurant before admitting she hoped he would call. The woman who had chosen a passage because her father once marked it in pencil. Then Vivian walked to the lectern. Her voice was clear. The sound system did not magnify her breathing. She found the marked pause and lifted her eyes exactly where Sophie had instructed. Sophie looked at Adam. She did not look at me. I folded the program once, carefully, along the center. The reception was held in a converted mill with brick walls and lights strung between old wooden beams. Sophie had assigned me to the table nearest hers, beside Dana and across from Uncle Martin, whose hearing aids had apparently recovered. You left early last night, he told me. I was tired. Sophie said you weren't feeling well. I was tired. He leaned closer. Same thing at our age. No, Martin, it isn't. He blinked, then grinned. There she is. Dinner was good. Adam's toast was funny without humiliating anyone, a rare achievement. Vivian spoke briefly and warmly. Dana cried into her napkin during the first dance, then denied it while still crying. Sophie came to my table twice. The first time, she asked if my shoes were hurting me and sent someone to find a pair of slippers from the emergency basket in the restroom. The second time, she brought me a slice of cake herself because the servers had missed our end of the table. She kissed the top of my head. You okay? She asked. I looked up at her. She wanted yes, not because she didn't care, but because there were still photographs to take, guests to greet, and 18 centerpieces waiting for their next location. I'm here, I said. Her smile held for 1 second too long. After the cake, she found me near the coat rack. Can you take the flowers and the card box? She asked. Dana has the guest book, but she can't fit everything in her car. No. Sophie looked over her shoulder, checking whether anyone had heard. What? I'm going home. Right now? Yes. But we talked about cleanup. She had talked. I had been in the room. You have a coordinator, I said. She leaves at 11. It's 9:40. Mom, are you seriously doing this tonight? I put on my coat. I attended your wedding. I smiled for the pictures. I watched someone else read your father's words. I'm not carrying the centerpieces. Her face went still. For the first time all day, she had no schedule in her hand. I kissed her cheek, told her I loved her, and walked out before she could decide which part of that to answer. Outside, rain had silvered the parking lot. I stood beneath the awning in satin slippers from the restroom emergency basket while the valet searched for my car. The slippers were printed with tiny gold rings and the words, "Dancing Feet." Mine looked more like escaping feet, but no one had thought to print that. Music thumped through the brick walls behind me. Every time the doors opened, a burst of warmth and laughter spilled out, then vanished again. The valet pulled up in my car and got out holding one hand above his head against the rain. "Big night?" he asked. "For somebody." He laughed politely because I was old enough to be tipped carefully. On the drive home, my phone buzzed inside my purse. I left it there. I knew Sophie wouldn't call while guests were still watching her be happy, but I imagined messages arriving anyway. "Where did you go?" "We need the trunk space. Please don't do this right now." At a red light, I glanced down at the satin slippers. The hems were already gray from the wet pavement. I started laughing. It came out ugly, half rasp, half cough, and once I started, I couldn't stop. I laughed until tears ran down my face, and the driver behind me tapped his horn because the light had changed. "Go around," I told him, though my windows were closed. At home, the kitchen looked exactly as I'd left it. One wedding shoe still lay under the table. The toast plate was in the sink. The boxes along the dining room wall waited with the patience of objects that knew they would eventually become my problem. I took off my coat and checked my phone. One message from Adam. "Thank you for today. I'm sorry we didn't get more time with you." A minute later, another had arrived. "Also, I think you accidentally stole the emergency slippers, which makes me respect you more." Nothing from Sophie. I typed, "Congratulations. Take care of her." Then I deleted it. It sounded like I was handing my daughter over at a train station. I wrote, "Congratulations. I love you both." Adam sent a heart. His was blue and just as symmetrical as Sophie's. I went upstairs without turning on the dining room light. The next morning, I woke at 6 with a headache from too little sleep and one small blister on each heel. The wedding was over. That fact sat in the room before I fully opened my eyes. I made coffee and carried it to the front porch. The rain had stopped. Wet leaves clung to the sidewalk, and the rosemary bush beside my steps smelled sharp enough to taste. At 8:15, Sophie called. I watched her name pulse across the screen until the call went to voicemail. She called again. On the third try, I answered. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Good morning." "Good morning. Are you okay?" "I'm drinking coffee. That's not what I asked. It's what I'm doing." I heard movement behind her, then Adam asking whether she had seen his charger. "No," she called. "Check the black bag." A door shut. Her voice lowered. "You left without saying goodbye to Adam." "I said goodbye to you. He's your son-in-law now. He was your husband for 5 hours. I thought he knew." "Mom?" My voice felt worse in the morning, so I took a sip of coffee before answering. Sophie filled the pause. "I'm not trying to fight. I just don't understand why you had to leave like that. I was tired. You were making a point. Both can be true." She breathed in slowly. She used to do that before difficult conversations with Eric, back when I still believed calmness meant she was calm. "I'm sorry yesterday didn't go the way you expected," she said. I looked across the street at my neighbor's newspaper dissolving in a puddle. "That's an interesting apology. I'm on my wedding weekend. Then get off the phone with me." "I called because I care." "You called because you want me to say everything's fine. That's unfair." so was giving me a reading, making me practice for 6 months, and taking it away in front of everyone. There was almost no one there. I closed my eyes. She heard herself. I knew she did because the silence changed. "That's not what I meant," she said. "You've said that a lot lately. Can we please talk when we get back?" "Yes. And actually talk? Not do this thing where you make one sentence sound like a whole speech? That would have been funny if it had come from anyone else." "I'll see you Wednesday," I said. "Wednesday afternoon. Probably around 4, unless traffic is bad. I remember. We put the cooler in your garage. There's food from the reception in it. Can you bring it inside before it goes bad?" There it was. The ordinary request waiting behind the emotional one. "Yes," I said. "Thank you. I love you. I love you too." After we hung up, I brought in the cooler. That was the part no one tells you about boundaries. They do not arrive as a clean line painted across the floor. They arrive while you're carrying a 40-pound cooler full of leftover chicken into your own kitchen, because leaving it to rot would only make your garage smell. I divided the food, froze what would keep, and threw away 3 containers of wilted salad. The top layer of the wedding cake was wrapped in white cardboard and labeled, "Do not eat, first anniversary." I made room for it behind the frozen peas. The newlyweds sent photographs from the coast. Sophie on a balcony wrapped in a hotel robe. Adam holding 2 enormous coffee cups, gray water behind them. Wind flattening Sophie's hair against her mouth while she laughed. I tapped the little heart beneath each picture. I did not ask whether they were having fun. I did not remind Sophie to wear a coat. I did not tell her that the contractor had called my house looking for Adam because someone had given him my number as the temporary contact. I gave the contractor Adam's number. It felt ridiculous to be proud of that. On Wednesday morning, Sophie texted to say they would arrive closer to 6. At 5:30, I put a chicken in the oven. I told myself I would have cooked anyway. At 6:20, a car door slammed outside. Adam came in first, carrying 2 suitcases and wearing the same sweater he'd worn in half the coastal photographs. "Room at the inn?" he asked. "Limited to 6 weeks." He paused, then smiled. "I appreciate a clear cancellation policy." Sophie came in behind him with her arms full of tote bags. She looked tired and windburned, her wedding manicure already chipped at one corner. The moment she saw me, her face softened. "Hi." She set the bags down and hugged me. I hugged her back. I could smell hotel shampoo and the lavender perfume she wore only when Adam was nearby. Her cheek pressed against mine. For 1 second, she was simply my daughter, home from a trip. Then she pulled away and looked toward the kitchen. "Is that your roast chicken?" "Yes." "Oh, thank God. We ate fried fish 3 days in a row." Adam carried the luggage upstairs while Sophie opened the refrigerator. "You brought in the food," she said. "You asked me to." "I know. I just wasn't sure." She found the cake box and smiled. "Perfect. You saved it. It was labeled like evidence." She laughed. "Vivian wanted us to keep the flowers too, but there were so many. Dana took some to her office. I waited. Sophie moved a carton of eggs, then shut the refrigerator. About Saturday, the oven timer went off. She looked relieved. I hated that I noticed. "Chicken's done," I said. We ate at the kitchen table because the dining room was still blocked by their boxes. Adam told me the inn had provided 1 robe, despite having 2 registered guests, which led to an argument over whether the robe belonged to the person who discovered it or the person who was coldest. "I was the coldest," Sophie said. "You're always the coldest," Adam told her. "That's how you've claimed every blanket we own. My circulation is delicate. Your circulation has a union." I laughed, then reached for my water when my throat caught. Sophie's eyes moved toward me automatically, not with disgust this time, with attention, the kind that waits for a problem. I swallowed and continued eating. After dinner, Adam stood and began clearing plates. "You don't have to do that," Sophie said. "I lived in a hotel for 3 days. I've forgotten my purpose. You drove 6 hours. 3 hours. It felt like 6. He carried the dishes to the sink. Sophie stayed at the table, tracing one finger through a water ring. I wasn't ashamed of you, she said. Adam's shoulders went still. I put down my fork. I didn't say you were. That's what you think. I'm trying not to tell you what I think while I'm angry. Then when are you planning to tell me? Not the first night you're staying in my house. Our house is being renovated. We're not staying here for fun. I looked at her. She closed her eyes briefly. That sounded terrible. It did. I meant this isn't some vacation where I expect you to wait on us. Adam turned from the sink with 3 plates balanced against his chest. We can get a hotel if this is too much. No, Sophie and I said together. He set the plates down slowly. Good, he said. Healthy progress. Sophie leaned back in her chair. I don't want the next 6 weeks to feel like I'm being punished. I don't want the next 6 weeks to feel like I'm staff. When have I ever treated you like staff? I glanced at the dining room wall. Her boxes faced us in neat black letters. Sophie followed my eyes. That's not fair. You offered to help us. I did, and we're grateful. I'm sure you are. Why do you say things like that? Like what? Like every word has another word hiding behind it. Adam opened the dishwasher and quietly began loading it. Sophie pressed her fingertips to the table. Can we agree to start over? I wanted to. That was the embarrassing truth. I wanted to put my hand over hers, tell her the wedding had been beautiful, and return to the version of us where she asked and I provided. Instead, I said, we can agree to go forward. She frowned. What's the difference? I don't know yet. Upstairs, something heavy fell. Adam looked toward the ceiling. That was either my suitcase or the end of your 6-week hospitality. I pushed my chair back. I'll get sheets for the bed. We can make it, Sophie said. The words came quickly, almost defensively. I nodded. They're in the hall closet. I left the 3 of us in the kitchen without picking up a single plate. Halfway upstairs, I heard Sophie ask Adam why he was looking at her that way. I'm not, he said. You are. I'm washing dishes. That doesn't answer me. It's the answer I have tonight. I kept climbing. In the guest room, their suitcases lay open across the bed I had already made. One of Sophie's bags had tipped over, spilling shoes onto the floor. Adam's charger was plugged into the wall. A framed wedding photograph, printed at the reception, had been placed on the dresser. They had been in my house 12 minutes before putting themselves in a frame. I stood there longer than I needed to. Then I took the extra sheets from the hall closet, placed them on a chair, and went to my own room. The green book was still on the nightstand. I moved it into the drawer and shut it. At 2 a.m, the drawer seemed louder than the book had been. I lay on my back listening to the house adjust around 3 people. Pipes knocked in the wall. The guest room floor creaked. A suitcase zipper opened, closed, then opened again. Sophie whispered something I couldn't make out, and Adam answered in a voice that meant he was trying not to wake me. They were not good at being quiet. At 4, one of them used the bathroom and flushed twice. At 5:30, Adam's phone alarm began playing cheerful marimba music through the wall. It stopped, started again 9 minutes later, then stopped with a muffled curse. At 6, I gave up and went downstairs. Adam appeared while the coffee was brewing. His hair stood up on one side, and he wore plaid pajama pants beneath his dress shirt. I'm experimenting with business on top, unemployment on the bottom, he said. Bold. Do you mind if I use the sewing room at 7? I have a call. That's why I moved the desk in there. I know, thank you. I just didn't want to assume. The word sat between us. He noticed. Adam noticed most things and commented on about a third of them. Is there a system for the coffee? He asked. Grounds go in the top. Coffee comes out the bottom. I was afraid there might be color coding. That's your wife. My wife. He smiled as he said it, surprised by the sound. Still weird. I poured him a cup. He drank it black, which made him easier to host than Sophie, who believed coffee should contain enough steamed milk to qualify as soup. Sophie came down at 6:40 wearing leggings and one of Tom's old college sweatshirts. She had found it years earlier in the laundry room and claimed it because it was soft. The lettering had faded to a pale arch across her chest. She kissed my cheek and opened the refrigerator. Did we use all the oat milk? You haven't been here long enough to use anything. There was some before the wedding. It expired. You threw it out? In August. She stared into the refrigerator as if time itself had inconvenienced her. Adam handed her his coffee. She took a sip and made a face. This is just coffee. That's the traditional recipe. I'll go out. You have a call at 7:30, he reminded her. Sophie looked at the clock, looked at me, then looked away before she could ask. I opened the cabinet and took out the small carton of shelf-stable oat milk I kept for her visits. Her face brightened. You do love me. Evidence remains mixed. She laughed and hugged me from the side while I stirred sugar into my cup. It was so familiar that my body relaxed before my mind approved. This was how we had always repaired things, not with apologies, with oat milk and jokes and the assumption that love, properly stocked, could cover whatever we refused to name. By 8, Adam was behind the closed door of my sewing room, speaking in the calm voice he used for work. Sophie had set up at the kitchen table with her laptop, phone, charger, notebook, water bottle, and 3 colored pens. She worked in marketing for a regional furniture company, which meant she often spoke about tables while occupying all of mine. I carried my breakfast toward the dining room, then remembered the boxes. Mom, do you need something? She asked. A surface. Give me 20 minutes. I'll use the porch. It's 48 degrees. I own a sweater. She looked at the kitchen clock. I have calls until 10. Then you can have the table. I live here. I can have the table now. Her expression flickered. I sat across from her. She put in her earbuds and joined a call. For the next hour, I learned that a photograph of a beige sectional had failed to communicate approachable comfort. Sophie said the phrase 4 times. Each time it sounded less approachable. I read the newspaper and turned the pages as quietly as possible. At 9:15, I ran the garbage disposal. Sophie muted herself. Do you have to do that right now? There was eggshell in the sink. It can wait. I looked at her. She closed her eyes briefly. Please, it can please wait. I turned off the water. She unmuted and returned to approachable comfort. Adam emerged at 10 carrying his laptop. Your sewing room has excellent acoustics, he said. My sewing room used to have sewing. I can move the desk back every night. That sounds exhausting. It does, but in a morally impressive way. Sophie pulled out one earbud. Can we not make everything a commentary? No commentary, Adam said. She looked at me. I didn't say anything, I told her. You didn't have to. Adam stood between us, holding his laptop like a cafeteria tray. I'm going to work from the library, he said. You don't need to leave, I told him. I know. They have chairs there, and no one I'm related to. After he left, Sophie gathered her things with sharp, efficient movements. I'll work upstairs. You can work here. No, I'm obviously in your way. I asked for one corner of the table. It's fine. There was no useful answer to fine, so I let her carry her office upstairs. My speech therapy appointment was at 11:30. Marisol's office occupied the back of a rehabilitation clinic between physical therapy and a room where people relearned how to swallow. The waiting area always smelled faintly of peppermint and rubber bands. Marisol was younger than Sophie by a few years, with dark curls she wore piled on her head and a habit of listening with her whole face. She never finished a word for me, not even when I got stuck. How was the wedding? She asked. Beautiful. And the reading? I took off my coat and folded it over the chair. I didn't do it. She waited. My daughter changed her mind. Why? The microphone. Marisol waited again. I disliked her professionally. She said my voice wasn't right for the ceremony. Her eyebrows lifted, but she didn't rush to comfort me. That was one of the reasons I kept seeing her. What did you say? I asked if I was still invited. That wasn't my question. I know. She rolled her stool closer to the table. Do you want to work on the passage today? No. Okay. That easy acceptance irritated me more than pressure would have. You think I should? I think you practiced it for 6 months. So, So your daughter can take away the microphone. She can't take away the work. That sounds like something printed on a mug. It does. Marisol smiled. A cheap mug. She set a small recorder on the table. We used it sometimes so I could hear my progress, though I hated listening to myself. Most people dislike recordings of their voices because the sound is unfamiliar. I disliked mine because it was becoming familiar. "Tell me what you had for breakfast," she said. "Toast. Full sentence. I had toast. What kind?" "The burned kind. My specialty." Again, without pushing the first word. I breathed low, the way she had taught me. I had burned toast for breakfast. The sentence came out steady. Marisol nodded once. No applause, no declaration of triumph. We moved on to humming through consonants. That helped. When I left, my phone showed 4 messages from Sophie. The first was a photograph of 6 wedding gifts on my dining room floor. The second was a list of stores. The third said, "If you're going out anyway, could you return these? Receipts are taped to the bottoms." The fourth said, "No rush, but deadlines are this week." I sat in my car and read them twice. On the passenger seat, the folder from Marisol contained exercises I was supposed to do daily. Behind it was a grocery list, Tom's old umbrella, and a canvas bag full of library books that were already overdue. I typed, "I have appointments today." Sophie answered before I had put the phone down. "Tomorrow is fine." I called her. She answered with, "Hi, did you see the list?" I did. The lamp has to go to the store by the mall, but the towels and the knife set are both downtown. The glasses were ordered online, so I can print. I'm not returning them. Silence. "Any of them?" "They're your gifts." "I know, but you're out." "I am out for my errands. It would take maybe an hour. Then it'll take you maybe an hour." Her voice cooled. "You could have just said you were busy." "I did. You said you had appointments today. And you assigned me tomorrow." "I didn't assign you anything. You sent a list. You like lists. I like my lists." A car pulled into the space beside me. I lowered my voice automatically, though the windows were closed. "Sophie, I'm happy to help sometimes. Sometimes is not the same as whenever you notice I'm available. Is this still about the reading? It's about the returns." "No, it isn't. I'm telling you what it's about. You're trying to teach me a lesson. I'm trying to go to the grocery store." She laughed once without humor. "Fine, go." I was already going. "Great." Neither of us hung up. Finally, she said, "Do you want me there?" The question was quiet enough that I almost missed it. "At my house?" "Yes. You're already there. That's not an answer." I looked through the windshield at a woman loading folded towels into the back of her car. "I want you there," I said. "I don't want to disappear because you're there." Sophie breathed in. "Okay," she said. But her voice meant nothing was okay. When I returned home, the wedding gifts were gone from the dining room floor. I found Sophie in the kitchen wearing her coat, the lamp box wedged beneath one arm and 2 shopping bags looped over the other. "I'm going to do the returns," she said. "All right. You don't have to sound pleased. I don't. You do." The box slipped. She caught it against her hip. I stepped forward instinctively. "I have it," she snapped. I stopped. Her face changed, and for a second, we both stared at the space my hands had almost crossed. "I know," I said. She carried everything to her car without asking for help. That night, Adam cooked pasta. He used 3 pots, though the meal required 1, and left red sauce on the stove handle. Sophie talked about the renovation and avoided looking at me. I washed my plate and put it in the dishwasher. The next morning, all 3 pots were still in the sink. Sophie's coffee cup sat beside them with a pale oat milk ring, drying at the bottom. I made toast, stepped around the dishes, and carried my breakfast to the porch. The porch was too cold for breakfast, but stubbornness has its own insulation. I wrapped both hands around my coffee and watched steam lift from the cup. Through the kitchen window, I could see the edge of the sink. The pots hadn't moved. Adam came downstairs wearing running clothes and stopped when he saw me outside. He opened the door. "Are we being robbed?" "No." "Gas leak?" "No." He looked back toward the kitchen. His eyes landed on the sink. "Ah, I bit into my toast. "Those are mine," he said. I assumed Sophie hadn't taken up recreational pasta. I said I'd clean. I didn't ask. I told myself I'd clean. Silently. Which is where most of my promises become legally binding. He went inside. Water began running. A few minutes later, Sophie entered the kitchen. I couldn't hear what she said through the glass, but I saw Adam glance toward the porch. Sophie folded her arms. He shook his head. She picked up her coffee cup, rinsed it, and put it in the dishwasher with enough force that I heard the rack rattle from outside. Adam opened the door again. "Coffee refresh? I'm fine. I'm trying to determine whether you're out here because you like fresh air or because my wife has turned dishwashing into psychological warfare. It can be two things." He nodded. I walked into that one. Sophie appeared behind him. "You don't have to talk about me like I'm not standing here." "You were standing in there," Adam said. "Now you're standing here." I left the dishes because I thought Mom might do them. There was something almost brave about the admission. "Why?" I asked. "Because you were home. So were you. I worked until 6, then I did all those returns." "Your returns." "Yes, my returns." I understand the possessive form. Adam closed his eyes. Sophie looked at him. "What?" "I'm deciding whether running in traffic would be safer. No one asked you to get involved. I cooked the pasta. Apparently I'm the original offender." I set my plate on the porch table. "I'm not angry about the pots." Sophie gave a small laugh. "You're eating breakfast in November. I'm angry that you left them to see what I would do." Her face went still. "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." The words were hers. She recognized them. Adam did too. He looked at the rosemary bush. Sophie pulled the sleeves of Tom's sweatshirt over her hands. "I thought we were trying to go forward." "We are. This doesn't feel forward. No, it feels uncomfortable. Same thing in this family, apparently." She turned and went upstairs. Adam stayed in the doorway. "I'm going to finish the pots," he said. "That seems wise. And then I'll run until one of you texts me that the house is clear. No one is throwing anything. I wasn't worried about objects." He went inside. I finished the toast, though it had gone cold. At noon, Vivian rang the doorbell carrying a shallow cardboard box and a white bakery bag. She wore jeans, a red coat, and an expression that suggested she had practiced looking casual in the car. "I brought muffins," she said. "Peace offering?" "I don't know." I panicked at the bakery. She came in and looked toward the dining room. "The occupation has begun. They've established supply lines." I remember when Adam stayed with me after his kitchen was remodeled. He brought 6 shirts and a waffle maker. "How long?" 10 weeks. I stared at her. "The contractor said 4. "Don't tell me that. Do you want the muffin before or after I show you what's in the box?" "After." That question ruined it. We sat at the kitchen table. Vivian placed the box between us and removed the lid. The cream-colored reading pages lay inside, beneath a folded piece of tissue paper. "Reading," Lena still appeared at the top. For a moment, I thought I could smell the chapel again. Candle wax, cold stone, Sophie's perfume. "I didn't know what to do with them," Vivian said. "You could have recycled them." I tried. That sounds dramatic. I stood over the recycling bin for several minutes. It became dramatic. I touched the top page but didn't lift it. "Did Sophie ask you to bring these?" "No." "She thinks I left them at the chapel." "Why give them to me?" "Because your name is on them." I looked toward the ceiling. Sophie was working in the guest room. Faintly, I could hear her voice through the floor, talking about furniture. "I don't want her to think we're forming an alliance." Vivian snorted. "Against Sophie? I prefer odds I can survive." That got a laugh out of me. She opened the bakery bag and placed 2 blueberry muffins on napkins. The muffins were large enough to require permits. "I'm not trying to make trouble," she said. "I liked you before our children got married, and I intend to like you afterward. You barely know me." "I barely know most people I like. More information rarely helps." I tore a piece from the top of the muffin. Vivian brushed crumbs from her napkin. I should have refused. I knew what she meant. She would have removed the reading. Maybe. She told me that. When? At the rehearsal. Vivian frowned. She told me she'd ask Pastor Renee. That was before you agreed. No, that was Saturday morning. I told her I felt strange about it. She said if I backed out, Pastor Renee could do it. I looked at the pages. Sophie had never intended to cut her father's passage. She had only told me that because she knew I wouldn't let it disappear. Vivian saw the realization. I thought you knew. No. I'm sorry. It isn't your fault. That sentence never makes anyone feel better. Footsteps sounded on the stairs. Vivian placed her muffin down. Neither of us moved the box. Sophie entered with her phone in one hand. Hi, she said to Vivian. Her eyes shifted to the table. What's that? Wedding debris, Vivian said. Sophie came closer. She saw the pages and looked at me. I thought those were gone. I kept them, Vivian said. Why? I couldn't throw away something with Lena's name on it. Sophie's jaw tightened. They're printed pages, not a kidney. No one said they were. This feels weird. It is weird, I said. She looked between us. Did you invite her over to discuss the wedding? Your mother brought muffins. I brought them, Vivian corrected. That's what I said. No, you said Lena invited me. I didn't. Adam came in through the back door, cheeks red from running. He stopped when he saw all three of us at the table. Absolutely not, he said. Vivian looked at him. Hello to you too. I don't know what this is, but I can't do a summit before lunch. It isn't a summit, Sophie said. Then why is there a document box? Vivian put the lid back on. Sit down and eat a muffin. He sat. For 10 minutes, we talked about safe subjects. The weather, the florist's final invoice, whether Adam and Sophie should freeze the extra reception chicken or admit no one wanted it. The reading pages remained in the center of the table like a fourth conversation. When Vivian left, she kissed Adam, hugged Sophie, and squeezed my hand. She left the box. Sophie waited until the front door closed. What are you going to do with those? I don't know. You don't need to keep them. I don't need to throw them away. They're just going to make you upset. I'm already upset. Adam stood at the sink, unwrapping the second half of his muffin. Sophie looked at him. Are you not going to say anything? I'm chewing. You always do that. Eat, disappear when something gets uncomfortable. He swallowed. I'm standing 4 feet away from you. You know what I mean. I know you want me to tell your mother to throw away pages with her own name on them. That is not what I asked. What are you asking? Sophie opened her mouth, then looked at me. I don't know anymore. She went upstairs. Adam stared at the ceiling after her. She hates when I agree with you, he said. I don't need you to agree with me. Good, because sometimes you're both exhausting. That sounded like agreement. He smiled faintly. Don't tell her. I carried the box upstairs and put it in the same nightstand drawer as the green book. The pages fit on top. I closed the drawer, but this time I didn't feel like I was hiding the book. I felt like I was storing evidence of a version of myself someone had briefly wanted, then edited. That evening, Sophie and Adam argued in the guest room. They kept their voices low at first. The apartment contractor had called. A shipment of tile had arrived in the wrong shade, and Adam had approved a replacement without asking Sophie because it was available immediately. Sophie said the substitute looked beige. Adam said the original also looked beige. There are different beiges, she told him. There shouldn't be. A door closed. 20 minutes later, Sophie came into my room without knocking. I was sitting in bed with a mystery novel open on my lap. Can I talk to you? You're already doing it. She sat on the edge of the chair near the window. Adam makes decisions and then acts like I'm unreasonable for caring. What decision? The bathroom tile. I waited. She described the tile. She showed me photographs on her phone. To me, both samples looked like crackers. The second one is warmer, she said. All right, you don't see it? I see 2 tiles. That's not the point. The point is, he approved it without me. Did he say why? Because it keeps the renovation on schedule. That sounds like a reason. Her face hardened. So you think he was right? I think he had a reason. This is what he does. He makes me feel ridiculous, then everyone sides with him because he's calm. I'm not siding with anyone. You just did. No. I listened. I don't need you to listen like a therapist. I need you to tell me if I'm wrong. I closed the book. Do you want my opinion or do you want my agreement? She stood. Forget it. Sophie? No. You made your point. I haven't made one. That is your point now. You don't do anything. You don't help. You just sit there and make everyone hear themselves. She left before I could answer. The next morning, there was a message on my phone from Noreen Bell, who ran the book group I had stopped attending 2 years earlier. We're reading something terrible Thursday. You should come complain in person. I read the message while Sophie and Adam spoke in careful voices over breakfast. Then I typed, "Save me a chair." Noreen answered with a thumbs up and a warning not to bring food. I had forgotten that she knew me well enough to add the second part. Thursday afternoon, I found myself standing in a grocery aisle holding a container of lemon cookies anyway. I put them in my cart, walked 6 feet, then returned them to the shelf. A woman reaching for oatmeal watched the entire struggle. "Book club," I explained. She nodded as if that answered something. The group met in the back room of an independent bookstore that had survived 3 rent increases, 2 floods, and the owner's attempt to add a cafe without learning how to make coffee. The back room contained 9 folding chairs, 1 leaning bookcase, and an electric kettle that took 20 minutes to boil. I arrived 10 minutes early. Noreen was arranging chairs in a circle. She was 70, broad-shouldered, and wore her white hair in a short cut that made every earring look important. She looked at me once, then kept moving chairs. "You're late," she said. "I'm early. You're 2 years late. That seems hard to fix. Sit down and begin." She hugged me before I could choose a chair. Noreen's hugs had no uncertainty in them. She held on long enough to make retreat impossible, then released me without asking why I'd stayed away. Gloria arrived next in a purple coat and claimed the chair nearest the radiator. Paul brought a thermos of his own coffee because he had once tried the bookstores. Rita came in carrying the novel we were supposed to have read and announced that she had stopped on page 87 out of moral principle. "No one asked you to finish," Noreen told her. "No one warned me the horse narrates chapter 9. The horse was the most emotionally available character," Paul said. I had read the whole book, mostly because I'd forgotten how to stop. We settled into the old shape of the group with only minor changes. Paul had lost weight. Gloria had stopped dyeing her hair. Noreen now wore reading glasses on a chain and denied they belonged to her whenever they were around her neck. For the first 15 minutes, I said almost nothing. Group conversation required timing. Before surgery, I could enter a gap without thinking. Now I had to plan the breath, form the first sound, and trust the gap would still be there when I arrived. Usually it wasn't. Someone else would fill it, and I would decide my thought hadn't been important. Rita was explaining why the main character's decision to leave her husband was structurally dishonest when I tried to speak. Paul began at the same time. "You go," I said. "No, you," he said. The attention of 5 people shifted toward me. My throat tightened. I looked down at the book. "I think she didn't leave because she was brave," I said. The first sentence came out thin. I took a breath. No one moved. I think she left because she wanted him to stop her. The room stayed quiet for 1 beat. Then Gloria said, "Exactly." Discussion continued. No one congratulated me for completing a sentence. No one said how strong I sounded. Rita disagreed with me immediately and at length. It was wonderful. By the end of the hour, my voice was tired, but I had used it. There was a difference. Noreen walked me to my car. "You got quieter," she said. "I had surgery." "I know. I brought soup. You brought lentil soup with no salt. You were alive enough to complain." I put my bag on the passenger seat. Talking takes more work now, so take the time. People don't always wait, then make them uncomfortable. That's your answer to everything. It keeps being useful. I smiled. Noreen leaned against the car door. "Why did you really stop coming?" "Tom died. That was 3 years ago. You kept coming for one. Sophie needed me. She always needs you. She was having a hard time. So were you." I looked across the parking lot. The bookstore windows glowed against the dark. Noreen. I waited 2 years to say it. That's practically restraint. She's staying with me for 6 weeks. Then you need book club more than ever. Monthly rescue is limited. We also have lunch on Tuesdays. You've been holding out. We contain multitudes. She squeezed my arm and walked away before I could decline. When I got home, the downstairs lights were off except for the lamp over the stove. 2 takeout containers sat on the counter. A note in Sophie's handwriting was propped against the salt shaker. Food in fridge. That was all. I reheated noodles and ate alone at the kitchen table. Upstairs, water ran in the shower. A floorboard creaked. I could hear low voices behind the guest room door, but not the words. At 10:30, Sophie came into the kitchen in pajamas. "You're home." "I've been home 40 minutes. We thought you were still out. Where did you think I went after book group?" "You didn't say it was book group." "I said I had plans." "You said, 'I'm going out tonight.'" "That's usually how plans work." She opened the refrigerator and took out oat milk. We waited until 8 to eat. "Why?" She looked at me over the carton. "I thought you might make something." "Did I say I would?" "No." "Did you ask?" "No, but you usually cook on Thursdays. I usually live alone on Thursdays." Sophie poured the oat milk into a glass and drank it standing beside the refrigerator. "I don't understand why every little thing has become a negotiation. Because you treated every little thing as decided. That's not true. You waited for dinner I never offered to make. I wasn't demanding dinner. I just thought we might eat together." The hurt in her voice was real. That was the trouble with Sophie. She could make an assumption and feel genuinely abandoned when reality failed to meet it. "We can eat together tomorrow," I said. "Ask me." Her mouth pressed into a line. "Do you want to have dinner with us tomorrow?" "Yes." "Fine." She put the oat milk away. As she passed me, she stopped. "How was it?" "What, book group?" I hadn't expected the question. The book was awful. "Did you have fun?" "Yes." She nodded slowly. "Good." At the doorway, she turned back. "Your voice sounds tired." "It is. Did you do your exercises first?" "No, you're supposed to." "I know. I'm not criticizing. It sounds very similar when you're concerned." She stood there for a moment, then opened the cabinet above the stove. She took down the honey, filled the kettle, and made me the tea Marisol had recommended after long periods of talking. She remembered the exact amount of honey. She set the mug in front of me. "I never thought your voice was ugly," she said. I touched the warm ceramic. "I didn't say ugly." "I know." "You said wrong. For the microphone. For the ceremony." She looked at the counter. "I don't know how to explain what I meant without making it worse." "Then don't explain it tonight." She nodded. It wasn't an apology, but it was closer than she had come. We stood together until the kettle clicked as it cooled. Then Sophie went upstairs, and I drank the tea she had made. The next evening, we had dinner together because she had asked. I made soup. Adam bought bread. Sophie set the table and cleared it afterward without being told. The 3 of us were so polite that I began to miss the pots. Over the weekend, we found a rhythm that almost worked. Adam used the sewing room for calls and moved his laptop every evening. Sophie worked at the kitchen table but left me one corner. I cooked twice. They ordered dinner once and included me without assuming I would be home. There were still small collisions. Sophie used my good bath towels to wrap wet hair and left damp circles on the guest room bed. Adam discovered he could not eat a single container of yogurt without leaving the foil lid on the counter. I moved their shoes away from the stairs every morning until I realized no one had asked me to and began stepping over them. On Sunday, Sophie found one under my heel. "You're going to fall," she said. "I know. Why didn't you move it? It isn't mine." She stared at me, then carried all 6 pairs upstairs. That afternoon, she came down holding the wedding photograph from their dresser. "Do you have a hammer?" "Basement workbench. I thought we could hang this in the guest room. You're there 6 weeks. We can still make it feel like ours. It's a nail in plaster." I'll fill the hole. Adam glanced up from the sofa. We don't have to hang it. Sophie looked at him. Why wouldn't we? Because your mother looked at the wall like you asked to remove a kidney. I did not, I said. Vivian has changed the standard for kidney-related expressions, he said. Sophie took the photograph upstairs without the hammer. I knew I was being difficult. A nail hole would not damage my life. The photograph was lovely. Sophie's desire to make a temporary room feel like home was not unreasonable. But I had begun to notice how often her comfort required a small piece of someone else's space. Monday brought the first call from the contractor. Sophie took it in the dining room. I was folding laundry in the living room when her voice rose. What do you mean? Moisture behind the second wall. Adam came out of the sewing room. She listened, asked questions, and began pacing between the boxes. Words like subfloor, ventilation, and inspection traveled into the living room. Adam mouthed, "Bad?" I shrugged. Sophie ended the call and stood with the phone pressed against her chest. They found more water damage. Adam's face changed. How much more? The bathroom wall backs onto the kitchen. They have to open part of that, too. How long? He doesn't know. He must have given you something. Sophie looked at me before answering. He said the original schedule isn't realistic. I set a folded towel on the laundry pile. What is realistic? I asked. They're trying to figure that out. Adam rubbed one hand over his face. Another 2 weeks? Sophie didn't answer. Soph? He said. He said it could be January. It was the first week of November. No one spoke. Then Sophie sat beside me on the sofa and reached for my hand. We'll make it work, she said. She wasn't asking. I slipped my hand out from under hers. No, I said, we won't. Sophie blinked. No, we won't what? We won't stay here until January. Her hand remained on the sofa between us, palm up where mine had been. Adam lowered himself into the armchair. Lena, I think she meant the contractor will make it work. No, she didn't. I meant all of us, Sophie said. Obviously. That's what I heard. She laughed once, softly, as though I had made a joke in poor taste. We've been here 5 days, and we agreed on 6 weeks. That was based on the apartment being finished. That was based on how long I agreed to have 2 people living in my house. Adam leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Okay, let's slow down. I am speaking slowly, I said. I meant the conversation. Sophie stood. So if the apartment isn't habitable, what exactly do you expect us to do? Find somewhere temporary, during the holidays? Yes, with no furniture. That's usually what temporary means. You have room. I have a guest room. You're using it. And the sewing room. Adam is using it during work. We could move a dresser in there and make more space upstairs. No. She stared at me. The word had landed harder this time because there was no reading, microphone, or crowd around it. Just my living room, a stack of folded towels, and the man she'd been married to for 9 days. Adam rubbed his palms together. We can look at furnished rentals. Sophie turned toward him. Why are you agreeing to this? I'm not agreeing. I'm identifying an option. You always identify options when someone else is being unreasonable. I waited for him to defend me. He didn't. We don't know the timeline yet, he said. Let's get the full estimate tomorrow, then figure out what we can afford. We can't afford to pay for our apartment and a rental through January. We might have to, or we could stay here. She looked at me again, offering the obvious solution as if I had overlooked it. You can stay until the end of the 6 weeks, I said. After that, you need another arrangement. What date is that? I had not expected her to ask so sharply. December 17th. She took out her phone. You counted? I knew when you arrived. You put an expiration date on us. You put one on yourselves when you said 6 weeks. Adam looked down at the floor. Sophie tapped her screen. December 17th is 8 days before Christmas. I own a calendar. You're throwing us out 8 days before Christmas. I'm giving you more than a month to find a place. That isn't how this will sound when I tell people. There was the threat, small and almost childish. Other people would hear her version, and it would be easier to understand. Tell them the date, I said. Mom, tell them you asked to stay for 6 weeks. I said yes, and then the work took longer. And tell them you refused to let your own daughter stay in a half-empty house. It isn't half-empty when you're in every room. Her face changed. I regretted the sentence as soon as it left me, but regret didn't make it untrue. Adam stood. I'm going to call the contractor. He just spoke to me, Sophie said. I know. I want the version without you yelling about beige. I did not yell about beige. Not today. He took his phone and went into the kitchen. Sophie folded her arms. This is because of the wedding. The wedding is why I'm noticing it. Noticing what? How much you assume? I assumed my mother wouldn't make me move twice in 2 months. You assumed you could stay without asking. Because you always let me. Yes. That stopped her. For 1 second, we were both inside the same truth. Then she shook her head. So I'm being punished for trusting you. No, you're being asked to make a plan that doesn't depend on me saying yes before you ask. You're enjoying this. The accusation hurt more than I expected. You think I enjoy seeing you scared? I think you enjoy finally being the one with power. I looked toward the kitchen. Adam was speaking quietly on the phone, one hand pressed over his other ear. I don't want power over you, I said. You want me to need you less. Yes. She looked as if I had struck her. I stood too quickly and the laundry pile slid sideways. A towel fell to the floor. Neither of us picked it up. You are 38 years old, I said. Wanting you to need me less is not rejection. You didn't mind when I needed you after Eric. You were going through a divorce. For 2 years. I opened my mouth. She stepped closer. You called every morning. If I didn't answer, you called again. You brought groceries I never asked for. You came over and organized my kitchen because you said the mess was making me depressed. You invited me here for dinner every night because you didn't want me eating alone. I was trying to help. You made yourself necessary. The room seemed to shift. Sophie's eyes filled, but her voice remained steady. You don't get to build our entire relationship around taking care of me and then act like I'm some selfish monster because I believed you liked it. I picked up the fallen towel. I folded it once, then again. Though it was already folded, I did like it. There. I liked knowing how to help you. That isn't the same as liking every way it changed us. You changed too. I know. Do you? I set the towel down. When your father died, you started calling me every night, I said. I told myself it was because you were worried about me. Some nights I think you called because you needed me to still be the mother from before. What does that even mean? The one who always knew what to do. You did know. No, I sounded sure. Sophie wiped beneath one eye with the heel of her hand. The kitchen door opened. Adam came back into the room. They won't know the full timeline until they open the kitchen wall tomorrow, he said. But he said end of January is possible. Sophie laughed bitterly. Great. He gave me the name of a company that manages furnished apartments. Even better. He said sometimes homeowners insurance covers part of temporary housing if the unit is uninhabitable. We already checked. It doesn't. Then we'll look at other options. You mean you'll look for somewhere else because my mother doesn't want us? Adam's face hardened. That's not what she said. Sophie grabbed her laptop from the dining room. Whose side are you on? I'm on the side where we don't bully someone into housing us. The silence afterward was absolute. Adam looked like he wished the sentence back. Sophie looked like she would never forget it. She carried her laptop upstairs. The guest room door closed, not slammed. Sophie was much more dangerous when she remembered not to slam doors. Adam stood in the middle of the living room. I shouldn't have said that. No, I agreed. He looked at me. You could pretend to struggle before agreeing. I'm tired. So is she? I know. He went upstairs after her. I sat among the towels until the light outside turned gray. That evening, no one made dinner. Adam and Sophie stayed upstairs. I heated a bowl of soup and ate it standing at the counter because sitting at the table felt too formal for one person. At 9, I opened my laptop and searched for furnished rentals. There were 12 within a reasonable drive of Sophie's office. 3 did not allow stays shorter than 90 days. 2 wanted more per month than my mortgage had ever been. 1 had photographs showing a bed 3 feet from a stove. I found a small one-bedroom apartment above a dentist's office. The furniture was ugly but clean. The listing said it was available December 1st. My finger hovered over the button marked Contact Host. I imagined sending Sophie the link. I imagined calling the landlord, explaining the situation, asking the questions she might forget. Parking, utilities, laundry, deposit. Within 10 minutes, I could have turned her problem into a project. By morning, I could have produced a list. I closed the laptop. The guilt came so quickly it almost felt physical. The next day, the contractor confirmed the damage was worse than expected. Sophie took the call outside. When she came in, she said nothing to me. She sat at the kitchen table and began looking at rentals. Adam worked in the sewing room. I heard him on the phone with property managers between business calls. By lunch, they had scheduled 2 viewings for Saturday. They did not ask me to come. I hadn't expected them to. Still, when Sophie said, "We'll be out most of the afternoon," something inside me answered, "I could help." I kept it quiet. Saturday morning, she came downstairs dressed for the viewings. Her hair was pulled back, and she wore the black coat she used when she wanted strangers to take her seriously. "Do you know anything about the area near Easton Avenue?" she asked. "A little. There's a place above a dentist." I looked at her. "What?" she said. "I saw it." "You were looking?" I was curious. "Did you call?" "No." "Why not?" "Because you're doing it." Her mouth tightened. "Right." Adam came down carrying a notebook. "Ready?" Sophie checked her purse. "Yes." At the door, she turned to me. "If we hate all of them, can we talk about the date again?" "You can talk." "That isn't what I asked." "I know." She left before I could say more. They returned 3 hours later, arguing about laundry. "The machines are in a basement with no interior stairs," Sophie said as she came through the door. Adam followed her. "People have survived outdoor staircases. In winter? Winter has been around a while. The second place smelled like somebody boiled a shoe. The third place was fine. The third place had 1 closet. We are currently keeping half our possessions in your mother's dining room." Sophie saw me at the kitchen counter. "Do you think 1 closet is enough for 2 adults? I shared one with your father for 34 years. You hated it. I hated his golf shirts." "He didn't play golf," Adam said. "That was part of the problem." He laughed. Sophie didn't. She placed a rental brochure on the table. The apartment was 20 minutes farther from her office, with plain walls and a brown sofa. Available December 15th. 2 days before the date I had given them. "They need an answer Monday," she said. I looked at the brochure. The rent was high. The deposit was higher than I expected. Paying it would not ruin them, but it would hurt. They would have to postpone furniture purchases and cut back on the upgrades Sophie had planned for the apartment. "This is a real cost," she said quietly. "I know. To preserve your space for 6 extra weeks. To preserve my answer." She stared at me. Then she folded the brochure and put it in her purse. "We'll take it," she said. She went upstairs. Adam remained by the table. "You got what you wanted," he said, not unkindly. The words landed badly anyway. I looked toward the dining room, at the boxes that would now leave on a fixed date. "No," I told him. "I got what I asked for." That night, Sophie wrote December 15th, "Move" on the paper calendar attached to my refrigerator. She used a red pen. For the first time since she arrived, I knew exactly when my house would be quiet again. I stood in the kitchen staring at the date and wondered why relief felt so much like loss. The red date stayed on the refrigerator. Sophie had written it large enough to be seen from the living room, and once I noticed it, I couldn't stop. Every trip for coffee became a countdown. 32 days. 31. The morning after they signed the lease, I opened the refrigerator and found their groceries grouped on the right side. Their yogurt, their oat milk, their leftover Thai food. A strip of blue painter's tape marked the shelf. I stood there in my robe, staring at it. Sophie entered behind me. "I moved your things to the left," she said. "I see that, so we don't accidentally use something you need. You've been drinking my oat milk for 3 weeks. I bought my own, clearly." She reached past me, took the new carton, and closed the refrigerator. "What?" she asked. "Nothing." "No, say it. It looks like a college apartment. You said you didn't want to feel like staff. I don't. This prevents confusion. There was no yogurt confusion." She set the carton on the counter. "I'm trying to respect your boundaries. By putting tape in my refrigerator, it peels off. I know how tape works." Adam came in carrying a laundry basket. "Is this a bad time to ask whether the washing machine has diplomatic waters?" Sophie turned on him. "Just use it. I wanted to make sure. You live here, temporarily." Her eyes flashed. He shifted the basket to his other hip. "I'll come back when breakfast is less geopolitical." After he left, Sophie poured oat milk into her coffee. "We're getting dinner after the rental inspection," she said. "We won't be here." "All right. We didn't include you because I didn't want to assume. That sounds considerate when you don't say it like a punishment. I'm not punishing you. You put a border in my refrigerator. That is tape. I know how tape works." We stood on opposite sides of the kitchen island, both of us angry over dairy substitutes. I touched the edge of the blue strip. "I wanted you to ask before you made plans for me," I said. "I didn't ask you to behave like we're strangers sharing a train compartment. I don't know what you want." "Neither do I all the time." "That's convenient. It's honest." Sophie crossed her arms. "Do you want to come to dinner?" "No." Her laugh was sharp. "See, I have lunch with Noreen today. I may not want to go out again. You could have said that. You could have asked without making it a test." She looked toward the stairs. "This is exhausting." "Yes. I miss when things were easy. Things had never been easy. They had been practiced." "I do too," I said. She peeled the tape from the shelf and crumpled it in her fist. At lunch, Noreen listened while eating half my French fries. "You ordered soup," she said. "Soup comes with crackers, not fries. You said you didn't want any. I didn't want to order any." Different principle. We sat in a diner booth beneath a framed photograph of a covered bridge. Noreen claimed the bridge was in Vermont. Our waitress said it was Ohio. This had become an argument before we ordered. "They signed a lease," I told her. "Good." "It costs too much." "Most things do. The sofa looks like it came from a dentist's waiting room. They'll survive sitting down." I pushed the ketchup toward her. "Sophie thinks I'm throwing her out. Are you?" I gave her a date. That wasn't my question. I looked at her. Noreen dipped a fry into my soup, which should have disqualified her from giving advice. "I need my house back," I said. "There. Very wicked. She's my daughter." "Yes, I've met her. She was hurt." "I'm sure. I was hurt too." "I'm sure of that too." I put my spoon down. "You could pretend one of us is right. That sounds boring." I watched people move beyond the diner window. A man struggled with an umbrella that had turned inside out. 2 women stood near a parking meter sharing a cigarette. Noreen wiped salt from her fingers. When my sister stopped speaking to me, she said, "I spent 6 months telling everyone I was finally at peace. You hated your sister." "I did. I also checked my phone every 12 minutes. Did you call her?" "No." "She called me after she needed a ride to a colonoscopy." "That's beautiful. We're very close now." I laughed. Noreen leaned back against the booth. "You can want your house back and still miss the version of Sophie who needs something every hour. Those feelings don't cancel out. They just make you annoying company." "Thank you. You're welcome." When I returned home, Adam was on the living room floor assembling a cardboard file box. Sophie knelt beside him with a roll of packing tape. "You're packing already?" I asked. "The things we don't use," Sophie said. Her wedding shoes rested on the coffee table. The photograph from the guest room dresser had been wrapped in a towel. 30 days. I took off my coat. "There's mail for you on the table." A stack of wedding cards waited beside my purse. Most were addressed to Sophie and Adam at my house because the invitations had gone out before they knew their apartment would be open to the weather. "We're doing thank you notes tonight," Sophie said. Adam made a noise that sounded like a tire-losing air. "You knew marriage involved correspondence," she told him. "I thought that was removed from the modern vows." She looked at me. "You don't have to help." "Did you want help?" Her expression became cautious. "Would you like to? What are the options? I can give you the list of gifts and you can read them out while we write." "That sounds like helping." "It is helping. I can do that." Adam looked between us. Was consent always this complicated, or am I noticing it now? "Make your box," Sophie said. That evening, we sat at the kitchen table with cards, envelopes, stamps, and the gift list. Sophie wrote the notes because her handwriting was the best. Adam addressed envelopes because his was merely readable. I matched gifts to names. "Dana gave the toaster," I said. "We have a toaster," Adam said. "We have 3 toasters," Sophie told him. Then Dana gave us security. Martin and Joe gave the crystal bowl. "What is a crystal bowl for?" Adam asked. "Regifting," I said. Sophie laughed hard enough to blot ink across the card. For almost an hour, we were good together. Not the old good where I anticipated and she accepted. Something smaller. She asked for the next name. I gave it. Adam put stamps on crooked. Sophie corrected him twice, then stopped. Vivian's name came near the bottom. Gift, silver serving tray. Sophie held her pen above the card. What should I say? "Thank her for the tray," Adam said. "I know that." "And for the reading," I said. She looked at me. Adam became very interested in the stamp sheet. Sophie lowered the pen. She did do us a favor. Yes. She was nervous. I know. She practiced in the hotel bathroom Saturday morning. I had not known that. Sophie turned the blank card sideways, then back again. "She didn't want to hurt you." "I know that, too." Her mouth tightened. "I didn't want to hurt you." The sentence sat there, almost complete. "But you thought it was necessary," I said. "I thought changing the reader was necessary." Same result. "I'm trying to tell you I didn't do it casually." I looked at her. "Does that help me?" "No." She pressed the pen point against the card hard enough to leave a dot. "I guess it helps me." Adam lifted one corner of the stamp sheet, then lowered it. Sophie wrote, "Thank you for being part of our ceremony. Nothing about the reading." We finished the cards and stacked them by the front door. When Sophie went upstairs, Adam stayed behind to gather scraps of paper. "She's sorry," he said. "She is sorry I'm hurt. That's still something. It's not the same as being sorry she did it." "No." I appreciated that he didn't argue. He picked up the uncapped pen Sophie had left behind. "When she gets afraid, she turns everything into a checklist," he said. "If she can complete enough steps, she thinks the feeling has to end. Has that worked? Not once. You married her anyway. I have my own terrible system." "What is it?" "I make jokes until she either laughs or threatens me." "That sounds effective." "It got me through the wedding." He capped the pen. "She's afraid this thing with you is permanent." "So am I." Adam looked surprised. I picked up the empty coffee cups. "Don't tell her." "Why?" "Because I don't want fear to become another chore she has to complete." He considered that, then nodded. The weather turned colder. A hard wind stripped the remaining leaves from the trees, and the house began making its winter sounds. The radiator in the guest room clanged at night. The back door swelled in its frame. Adam learned that my thermostat did not respond to negotiation. Sophie and I improved by inches. She asked before adding my clothes to a load of laundry. I said yes. I asked if they wanted soup. They said no, then ate half of it when they smelled it. No one called this hypocrisy. At book group, I spoke 3 times without rehearsing the first sentence in my head. The 3rd time, Rita interrupted me. I kept talking. She stopped. Noreen did not look at me, which I knew was her version of respect. Marisol noticed the change in my voice at our next appointment. "You're using more air," she said. "I'm talking more." "To whom?" People who disagree with me. The best exercise. She set the recorder on the table. I no longer hated it every time. The contractor sent photographs of the opened walls. The damage looked worse than the apartment itself had ever looked. Sophie stared at the pictures during dinner, morning cabinets that had not been especially attractive when they were intact. The rental company approved them. The deposit cleared. Cardboard boxes multiplied upstairs. Then, on the first Friday in December, snow began falling before lunch. It wasn't supposed to amount to much. By 3, the porch steps had disappeared beneath white. Wind shook the windows, and the lights flickered twice during Adam's conference call. Sophie came downstairs carrying 2 laptops and 3 chargers. The internet's unstable. So is the power, I said. Adam emerged from the sewing room. If we lose electricity, I'm telling work I died. You said that last time your camera froze, Sophie told him. I recovered. The lights flickered again. I filled the kettle while we still had the stove. Sophie located candles in the dining room cabinet without asking me where they were. She knew because she had put them there after Tom's funeral, when people kept bringing candles as though grief were a scent problem. At 6, the power went out. The house became silent in a way houses rarely are. No refrigerator hum, no furnace, no electronic lights blinking from corners. Just wind and the soft ticking of metal cooling in the kitchen. We ate crackers, cheese, and cold leftover soup that Adam insisted on calling gazpacho. It has potatoes, Sophie said. Winter gazpacho. It's 34 degrees in here, seasonally appropriate. Our phones lost charge faster than expected because Sophie kept checking the utility website. The estimated restoration time moved from 8 to 10, then disappeared entirely. By 9, we had gathered in the kitchen around 4 candles. I wrapped a blanket over my shoulders. Sophie wore Tom's sweatshirt again, with thick socks pulled over the bottoms of her pajama pants. Adam sat backward on a chair, his arms folded across the top. Outside, a branch cracked somewhere in the dark. Adam looked at me across the candlelight. So, he said, what did you and Tom do when the power went out? Sophie's face changed before I answered. She knew there was a story. I did too. Tom lied about our first apartment, I said. Sophie lifted her chin. He did not. He called it cozy. Adam smiled. How bad was it? The kitchen had wallpaper covered in yellow chickens. Not tasteful chickens, frightened chickens. Every one of them looked like it knew how the building would end. There was one wall of chickens, Sophie said. I looked at her. You never saw the apartment. I saw pictures. Pictures don't show smell. What did it smell like? Adam asked. Hot dust and somebody else's cabbage. Romantic. We lived above a laundromat. The floor shook during the spin cycle. Sophie pulled her sleeves over her hands. Dad said you liked that because it made the bed vibrate. He told people that after we moved. Adam laughed. I continued. Our first winter, an ice storm knocked out the power. The landlord said it would be restored by morning. Then morning became evening, and evening became whenever the utility company remembered our street existed. Tom decided we would stay because we were newly married, and it was our home. That sounds like Dad, Sophie said. It sounds sweet now. At the time, it was 21 degrees outside, and your father's plan for heat was putting on 2 pairs of socks. He had a space heater. The space heater required electricity. Oh, we'd been arguing for 3 days before the power went out. About what? Adam asked. His mother. Sophie made a face. Grandma Mercer? You had another one? I know, but Dad adored her. Yes, that was part of the argument. Adam shifted his chair closer to the candles. What did she do? She called every night during dinner. If we didn't answer, she called again. If we still didn't answer, she walked over because we lived 4 blocks away. I thought she lived across town, Sophie said. Later. Dad said she only came by on Sundays. Later. Sophie frowned. I pulled the blanket tighter around me. One night, she let herself into the apartment while we were eating. Tom had given her a key without telling me. Adam winced. Oh, Tom, exactly. She brought a pot roast and said she knew I'd be tired after work. I had made pot roast. Sophie smiled despite herself. So you had two. We had a 6-pound argument with gravy. That story changes every time you tell it. I stopped. The wind pressed against the windows. One candle flame bent toward the sink, then straightened. What changed? I asked. The pot roast used to be chicken. No, that was Easter. And Grandma didn't let herself in. Dad invited her. Tom told you that? I remember him saying it. You remember the version he told 20 years later. Sophie sat straighter. I'm not calling you a liar. You're correcting a story you weren't there for. I'm clarifying. For Adam? For accuracy. I looked at my daughter across the candlelight. Tom's faded college letters curved across her chest. She had one of his old blankets over her knees. Around her, the house was dark enough that I could almost see all the versions of us she preferred. The funny father, the steady mother, the marriage without pot roast or locked bathroom doors. I tried to continue. After his mother left, Tom and I argued until... You didn't argue for 3 days straight, Sophie said. Dad said you went to the movies the next night. No, he went to the movies. Alone? With Raymond. Dad hated movies with Raymond because he talked. He was avoiding me. I've never heard that part. You've heard it now. Her mouth tightened. I continued. By the time the power went out, we had barely spoken since the pot roast. Chicken, she said, then smiled as though that made it lighter. Something in me went still. Not angry. Not at first, just finished. This is what you meant about my voice, I said. Sophie's smile disappeared. I set my cup on the table. It isn't wrong because it shakes. It's wrong whenever it says something you didn't arrange. Adam lowered his eyes. Sophie stared at me. That isn't what I'm doing. You haven't let me finish one part of the story. I was helping you remember. I remember my own marriage. I know that. Do you? She pushed the blanket from her knees and stood. This has nothing to do with the wedding. It has everything to do with the wedding. Because I corrected pot roast? Because you keep deciding which version of me is allowed in the room. That is so dramatic. Yes. Sometimes things are. You're turning every conversation into a trial. No one is on trial. It feels like I am. Adam shifted in his chair. Soph, maybe sit down. She looked at him. You asked for the story. I did. And now you think I ruined it. I think your mother was telling it. There. She pointed toward him. That tone. You do that calm voice, and suddenly I'm the difficult person. I'm not saying you're difficult. You don't have to. I almost laughed at the repeated sentence, but nothing in the room was funny now. Sophie, I said. She turned toward me. You weren't there. You don't have to protect your father from being imperfect. I'm not protecting him. You are. You've been doing it since he died. That's not fair. He gave his mother a key to our apartment. He lied about it. He left me alone after our argument and went to a movie with a man he claimed to dislike. Raymond talked through movies. He talked through life. That doesn't mean Dad was trying to hurt you. I didn't say he was. You make it sound like he was. No, I make it sound like he was 27. Her eyes filled. Adam stood, but he didn't approach her. Sophie looked toward the black window. You always tell the funny stories. I tell the ones you let me finish. That's not true. You want your father warm and uncomplicated. You want me useful and steady. You want Adam calm. The second one of us says something outside the version you've prepared. You fix it. I don't fix people. You fixed my reading. Her face crumpled for half a second, then hardened again. The reading would have been difficult for you. It was difficult for me. I was trying to prevent that. No, you were trying to prevent anyone from seeing it. The candle nearest, Sophie sputtered. Wax ran down one side and pooled on the saucer. I knew you would get emotional, she said. So? So I didn't know what would happen. I would have taken a breath. You don't know that. Neither did you. Her voice rose. I couldn't have you standing there struggling while everyone watched me decide whether to go help you. You could have stayed where you were and let people think I didn't care. There it was again. The room outside the room, the invisible audience she carried everywhere. Was that what you were worried about? I asked. What people would think of you? No. Adam looked at her. Sophie saw him looking. Stop, she said. I didn't say anything. You were about to. I wasn't. You had the face. What face? The reasonable face. There are worse faces. She pressed both hands against her forehead. I wanted one day, she said. Her voice had changed. The anger was still there, but something underneath it had broken loose. One day where nobody was waiting for something to go wrong. One day where people weren't looking at me like, well, we all know how the first one ended. No one at the wedding was thinking about Eric, Adam said quietly. You don't know that. I do, actually. Most of my relatives never met him. It wasn't just your relatives. I said nothing. Sophie looked at me. Dana saw me after he left. Pastor Renee knew. Everyone who knew Dad remembered what a mess I was. I wanted to walk into that chapel and not feel like people were relieved I'd finally managed to get it right. Sophie. No, you wanted to know. I wanted to know why you took it from me. Because when your voice started shaking, I could feel everyone noticing. The chapel was empty. I noticed. That answer hurt because it was honest. She sat again, but not at the table. She lowered herself onto the bench by the back door. I heard you, she said. And all I could think was that tomorrow you would stand there and start crying. And then I would start crying. Not nice wedding crying. I'd lose it. Dad would be everywhere. Eric would be everywhere. Everything that happened before Adam would be there, and people would look at me and see the same woman on the bathroom floor. Adam's eyes closed briefly. Sophie continued before any of us could interrupt. I didn't want the ceremony to turn into proof that I was still damaged. I looked at her. So you removed me. I changed the reader. You removed the version of me you couldn't control. That isn't the same. It felt the same from the lectern. She rubbed her thumb over the edge of her wedding ring. I wanted you there, as long as I looked right and stayed quiet. That's not fair. Tell me which part is wrong. She opened her mouth. Nothing came. Adam leaned against the counter. The kitchen had grown colder. Our breath didn't show, but the air felt close to it. You knew I would let Vivian read, I said. Sophie looked down. You told me the passage would be cut if she refused. That wasn't true. Her eyes lifted sharply toward me. Vivian told you. She brought me the pages. Of course she did. Don't blame her. She had no right to get involved. She returned something with my name on it. You and Vivian have been talking about me. We had a muffin. Adam made a small sound that might have been a laugh. Sophie glared at him, and he pressed his lips together. You knew, I said again. Sophie's shoulders dropped. Yes. Why? Because I knew you wouldn't let Dad's passage disappear. You used him to make me cooperate. No. She stopped. Maybe. The admission was barely louder than the wind. And you knew I'd still come, I said. She nodded. You knew I'd smile. Another nod. You knew I'd help with everything else. I thought you would, because I always do. Yes. The kitchen seemed to hold that word after she finished saying it. I could have used it to hurt her. For one sharp second, I wanted to. I wanted to list every late-night call, every errand, every meal, every room I had cleared. I wanted to make her carry the full weight of my usefulness. Instead, I said, that's the part that has to change. Sophie wiped both cheeks with her sleeves. I don't know what you want me to say. I don't either. Do you want me to apologize? Only if you're sorry you did it. I'm sorry I hurt you. I know, that's not enough. Not yet. She looked toward the stairs. Adam stepped away from the counter. We're not going to solve this tonight. Sophie laughed weakly. Thank you, reasonable face. I can turn it off if you want. I do. He exaggerated a terrible scowl. Against her will, she made a sound that was almost a laugh. It broke into a sob instead. Adam crossed the room then. He sat beside her on the bench and put his hand over hers. She let him. I stayed at the table. The power did not return dramatically. No lights came on to expose us. No furnace started humming at the right emotional moment. We sat in the dark until the candles burned lower and there was nothing left to say without repeating ourselves. When Sophie stood, she carried her candle upstairs. At the bottom step, she turned. How did the story end? I looked at her. The apartment, she said. The power outage. I don't want to finish it now. Her face tightened, but she nodded. Okay? She went upstairs. Adam stayed behind long enough to gather the bowls. You don't have to do that, I said. I know. He stacked them carefully. For what it's worth, I would still like to hear the story. For accuracy? For the chickens. I smiled despite myself. After he went upstairs, I opened the nightstand drawer. I took out the green book and the cream-colored pages, then carried both downstairs. I did not read the passage. I placed the book on the kitchen table beside the dying candles and sat with it until the power returned after midnight. In the morning, I found Sophie in the kitchen wearing her coat over her pajamas. The sidewalk and front steps were already shoveled. Snow clung to the cuffs of her pants. Her face was red from cold. You did the whole walk? I asked. And the driveway. You didn't have to. I know. She poured coffee into a mug. Her hands were shaking. After a moment, she looked at the green book on the table. Is that Dad's? Yes. Can I see it? I put my hand over the cover. Not today. The answer hurt her. I watched it happen. But she didn't argue. She took her coffee upstairs, leaving wet footprints across the kitchen floor. I saw them. I left them there until they dried. By noon, the house smelled like wet wool and candle smoke. The electricity stayed on, but the internet did not. Adam took his laptop to a coffee shop. Sophie worked from the kitchen table using her phone as a hotspot, speaking in a voice so controlled that every sentence sounded laminated. The green book remained near the salt shaker. She looked at it several times without asking again. I swept the dried salt from her footprints after lunch, not because I had surrendered. Salt damages wood. Some acts are maintenance, not motherhood, though the difference can be difficult to explain while holding a broom. Sophie muted a call. Thank you for not making me feel bad about the floor. I considered it. I know. She unmuted herself. That was how we spoke after the outage. Small sentences placed carefully between us, each one checked for weight before being set down. At dinner, she didn't correct Adam when he said the storm had dropped 9 inches of snow. The radio had reported 7. I watched her notice the difference and let it pass. Adam noticed too. So we're just accepting 9? He asked. Sophie narrowed her eyes. Do you have a problem with 9? No. I'm thrilled about 9. Good. The corners of her mouth moved. The green book returned to my bedroom that night. I placed it in the drawer on top of the reading pages. I didn't shut the drawer all the way. At my next appointment, Marisol asked me to read from a sheet of sentences designed for people recovering from vocal surgery. The first sentence was, "The blue boat moved toward shore." "The blue boat has no business being out this time of year," I said. Marisol crossed her arms. Read. The second sentence concerned a red ball. The third involved 5 fresh fish. Who wrote these? Someone with excellent breath support. Someone without a life. She waited until I finished the page. My voice was stronger in the middle than at the beginning. It still thinned at the ends of long sentences, and certain consonants came out rough when I was tired. Marisol marked something on her tablet. What? I asked. You're taking pauses without apologizing for them. I never apologized. You used to fill them with sorry or give me a second. I looked at the sheet. People get uncomfortable. Are you responsible for that sometimes? Why? Because I can see it happening. She set the tablet aside. Do you still have the wedding passage? Yes. Do you want to bring it next time? No. Okay. I studied her face for disappointment and found none. Maybe later, I said. Maybe. Outside the clinic, I sat in my car and called Noreen. She answered with, I'm not helping you move anything. No one asked. You've reached the age where every December phone call is either furniture or a potluck. I was calling about lunch. Better. Rita wants to try a new place that serves salads in jars. That sounds like a threat. I'll pick you up Tuesday. When I got home, a second calendar had appeared beside the first one on the refrigerator. Sophie had printed a moving checklist with boxes beside each task. Change mailing address, transfer internet, pick up keys, move fragile items. Each completed task had been checked in blue ink. December 15th, move, remained above it in red. Only 9 days separated us from the date. Boxes narrowed the upstairs hallway. Adam dismantled the temporary work setup in my sewing room and stacked his equipment against the wall. Each evening, something disappeared from the house. Their coats vanished from the hooks by the back door. The oat milk left my refrigerator. The framed wedding photograph went into a padded box marked "Personal, do not stack." I missed their things before they were gone. On the Saturday before the move, Vivian and Dana came to help pack. Vivian brought tape, labels, and 2 bottles of wine for after we become ineffective. Dana arrived with an empty trunk and no tape because she believed personalities were more useful than supplies. Sophie assigned us rooms. Dana, kitchen. Vivian, upstairs closet. Mom, could you wrap the glassware? She stopped. If you want to. I can wrap glassware. You don't have to. I know. I'm asking. I said yes. Dana leaned toward Adam. I miss the monarchy. You weren't paying enough attention, he said. We have a constitutional crisis. Packing went badly in ordinary ways. Dana wrapped a blender in one of my dish towels. Vivian labeled a box bedroom when it contained bathroom items. Adam tried to carry too many books at once and dropped a paperback on his foot, then blamed literature. Sophie moved through the rooms correcting labels. Fragile needs to be on 2 sides. The rental kitchen is small. Don't pack the large roasting pan with the daily cookware. Why is this marked miscellaneous? That means nothing. It means several things, Dana said. That's the beauty. At noon, I made sandwiches. No one had asked me to, but 5 adults had been carrying boxes in my house for 3 hours, and refusing food would have been a strange place to locate my independence. We ate standing around the kitchen island. Sophie checked items off her list between bites. Vivian watched her. You know, she said, the boxes will arrive even if they're labeled imperfectly. That's how we ended up with your waffle maker in the bathroom, Adam said. You loved bathroom waffles. No one has ever loved that phrase. Sophie put down her sandwich. I'm just trying to keep this organized. We know, Vivian said. Her tone was kind, which made Sophie suspicious. What? Nothing. Everyone keeps saying nothing at me. Dana opened the wine. It's 12:20, Sophie said. I've packed 6 boxes. Time has lost meaning. She poured a small glass for herself, then held up the bottle toward me. I shook my head. Vivian accepted. Within an hour, the labeling system became less important. We found 2 wedding gifts Sophie had forgotten to return, a drawer full of charging cords belonging to no known device, and one of Tom's golf shirts inside a box marked Adam Winter. Sophie held it up. This is Dad's. It isn't Adam's, I agreed. He had this forever. He never wore it. He wore it in that picture at the lake. He wore it once in 30 years. That was why I objected to giving it closet space. She rubbed the fabric between her fingers. Do you want it? She asked. No. She looked surprised. I thought you'd keep all his things. I kept plenty. What should I do with it? Whatever you want. She folded the shirt and placed it in her personal box. I didn't tell her that Tom had bought it because a salesman convinced him every man needed one decent golf shirt, and that he had spent the next 3 decades avoiding golf. She could keep the shirt without having the whole story attached. By late afternoon, the dining room wall was bare for the first time since before the wedding. The boxes had been sorted into 2 groups, rental and storage. Adam carried the last of the storage boxes to his car. Vivian and Dana left before dark. Sophie stood in the dining room looking at the scuff marks where boxes had pressed against the baseboard. I can touch up the paint, she said. It's fine, it's chipped. I'll do it later. You shouldn't have to fix what we damaged. It's paint." She gave me a tired smile. "You know how tape works. I know how paint works. Apparently, we raised ourselves well." Her smile faded but didn't disappear completely. The night before they moved, the guest room looked like a hotel after checkout. Bare mattress, empty closet, 2 suitcases on the floor. Adam had gone to the rental to wait for the internet installer, who had provided a 4-hour window and arrived during the 5th. Sophie and I ate soup at the kitchen table. No tape divided the refrigerator shelves. She glanced toward the ceiling. "It's strange without the picture upstairs. You'll have it tomorrow." "I know." She tore bread into small pieces and dropped one into her soup. "Are you relieved?" "Yes." Her hand stopped. I could have softened it. I almost did. "I'm also sad," I said. She resumed tearing the bread. "I don't know what to do with both. Neither do I." We ate quietly. Afterwards, she washed the bowls. I dried them. The arrangement had not been discussed. When the last bowl was in the cabinet, she leaned against the sink. "Will you tell me how the power outage story ended?" I folded the dish towel over the oven handle. "Why?" "Because I interrupted you. That isn't a reason to hear the ending." "No." She looked down. "But I'd like to." I sat at the table. Sophie took the chair across from me. She did not bring her phone. "For most of that night," I said, "your father and I pretended we weren't cold." She waited. We each sat under a different blanket. He ate his mother's pot roast straight from the refrigerator because he knew it would irritate me. Did it? Deeply. A smile touched her face. At some point, he told me I could go to my mother's house if I was so unhappy. I put on my coat. Then I discovered the outside steps were covered in ice. "You stayed because you couldn't leave?" "I stayed because I was afraid of breaking my neck." Sophie pressed her lips together. I slept in the chair. In the morning, the power was still out. Tom made coffee by boiling water over a camping stove on the back landing. He gave me the first cup. That was nice. It was manipulative. Good coffee can be both. She nodded. He said he had asked his mother for the apartment key, not because I made him, because he realized I had never felt like the place was mine. "What did you say?" I told him the apartment wasn't his either. It belonged to a landlord named Mr. Pappas, who entered without knocking. She laughed softly. Then I apologized for not telling him how angry I was until I wanted him to suffer for it. Sophie looked at the tabletop. "So neither of you was right. We were married." "That happened often." "Did Grandma give the key back?" "She made a copy first." "No." "Yes." "What did you do?" "I moved a chair against the door every night until we changed the lock." Sophie laughed harder. The sound cracked into something close to crying, but she held it. I waited. She took a breath. "I'm sorry I interrupted." "Thank you. And I'm sorry I corrected you about your own life." I nodded. She looked disappointed, perhaps expecting me to tell her it was all right. It wasn't all right yet, but the apology was. Adam returned with a bag of takeout and the news that the rental had internet, hot water, and a bathroom light that buzzed ominously. In the morning, they loaded the last boxes. Adam moved Tom's desk out of the sewing room and asked where I wanted it. I told him to leave it in the hallway for now. I wasn't ready to restore everything to its old place simply because I had gotten the space back. Sophie carried her suitcase to the front door. The house looked larger around her. "Well," she said, "you can have it back. I wanted the house back. I didn't ask to lose you." Her eyes filled. "I don't know how to give you one without the other yet." Neither did I. She hugged me. It was not a long hug. Adam kissed my cheek, thanked me, and promised to return the satin emergency slippers he had found in a reception box. "Keep them," I said. "They're a symbol of rebellion. They're wet and ruined. Most symbols are." I watched them drive away. Then I went inside. For the first time in 6 weeks, no one's shoes blocked the stairs. No laptop occupied my table. No voice came through the sewing room door. I stood in the middle of the quiet house and listened to my refrigerator hum. It sounded louder than it had before. I walked from room to room, turning on lights, though it was only 4 in the afternoon. In the guest room, the bare mattress showed 2 shallow impressions where their bodies had been. A single black sock lay beneath the bed. I picked it up, carried it downstairs, and placed it on the kitchen counter. Then I moved it to the dining room table. Then I put it in my purse so I could return it the next time I saw Sophie. 5 minutes later, I took it out of my purse. The sock had become a problem only because there was no one there to leave another one. I dropped it into the laundry room basket and shut the door. Tom's desk remained in the upstairs hallway. I had expected to move it into place as soon as Adam left, but I didn't. The sewing room felt enormous without it. A rectangle of cleaner carpet marked where it had stood. I put my sewing machine back on the folding table and discovered I no longer wanted to sew. At 6, I made too much pasta. At 8, I checked my phone. Sophie had sent one message. We're in. The bathroom light sounds possessed, but everything else works. I typed, glad you're settled. She answered with a thumbs up. Neither of us called. The next morning, I woke before Adam's marimba alarm failed to go off through the wall. The quiet had its own schedule. I made coffee for one and poured the extra half cup down the sink. By noon, I had moved Tom's desk to the front room by myself. I dragged it across the hallway on an old towel, one careful inch at a time. It took 40 minutes and left a pale scrape on the floor. I could have called someone, I didn't. There were consequences to that, too. At Tuesday lunch, Noreen looked at me over a jar containing lettuce, beans, and a hard-boiled egg. This is not a salad, she said. This is a hostage situation. You pick the restaurant. Rita picked it. She enjoys novelty because she has no standards. Rita, sitting across from us, shook her jar hard enough to frighten nearby diners. You have to distribute the dressing. I shouldn't have to work this hard for lettuce, Noreen said. I smiled, but not convincingly. You miss them, she said. I miss Adam's alarm. That bad? I keep listening for things. Call her. She has my number. So you're both 12. I don't know what to say. Ask if her bathroom is still possessed. That was 3 days ago. Demons rarely resolve themselves. I looked down at my soup. Noreen took the bread from my plate. You can call without offering anything, she said. I know. Do you? That evening, I called Sophie. She answered on the second ring. Is everything okay? Why wouldn't it be? You called. I have called you before. Not since we moved. That was Sunday. It feels longer. We were quiet. How's the bathroom light? I asked. Adam tightened something. It stopped buzzing. Good. He watched a video. Modern marriage. She laughed softly. I waited for her to fill the space with a complaint, a question, a need. She didn't. How's the house? She asked. Quiet. Is that good? Sometimes. Another silence. I found your sock, I said. Which one? Black. That narrows it down to all my socks. It's in the laundry room. Keep it. I don't want your sock. Throw it away. That seems aggressive. She laughed again, a real laugh this time. We talked for 11 minutes. No one mentioned the reading, the rental, or the red date. She told me the furnished sofa tilted slightly to the left. I told her Tom's desk had scratched the hallway floor. She asked why I'd moved it alone. I said because I had. She did not tell me what I should have done. Before hanging up, she said, Are we still doing Christmas at your house? I plan to. Do you want us there? Yes. Do you want me to bring anything? Yes. She waited. Dessert, I said. 1 dessert. Not 6 options. I can do one. Good. Should I ask Vivian to bring something? She's bringing the ham. You already talked to Vivian? She called me. She calls you now? Sometimes. What do you talk about? Kidneys. Sophie was silent for a second, then groaned. I'm never getting away from that. Probably not. Christmas had always been my holiday. This time, she arrived at noon carrying 1 covered cake stand. 1 dessert, she announced. Adam came behind her with a roasting pan and a paper shopping bag. I have potatoes and contraband. What contraband? He handed me the bag. Inside were the satin emergency slippers, washed but permanently gray around the edges. He had written escape vehicle across the bag in black marker. You kept these for 3 weeks? They're historically significant. Sophie removed her coat. He wanted to frame them. I was overruled. Thank you, I said. I think. Vivian arrived with the ham. Dana brought wine and claimed she had misunderstood the instruction about one dessert because technically wine was a beverage. We were 6 adults in my dining room. No boxes, no wedding decorations, no seating chart. The meal wasn't perfect. Adam's potatoes were undercooked. Vivian's ham glaze burned around the edges. Sophie's cake leaned to one side because the rental oven was not level, although I suspected the cake itself had made choices. At one point, Dana asked whether I had heard from Eric. Sophie froze. Dana closed her eyes. I don't know why I said his name. Neither do I, Sophie said. I was trying to remember the name of your old dentist. Eric was not my dentist. I know that now. Adam raised his glass. To growth. The moment passed. After dinner, we opened presents in the living room. Vivian gave me a scarf. Dana gave everyone small bottles of hot sauce she had bought in an airport. Sophie and Adam gave me a heavy wool blanket in dark green. For the next power outage, Sophie said. It's beautiful. There was a blue one, but the green looked better in this room. She glanced at me. I hope that's okay. It is. That simple permission seemed to matter to both of us. When the others left, Sophie stayed to help with the dishes. Adam and Vivian took the last bags of trash outside. The green book lay on the side table where I had placed it after moving Tom's desk. Sophie dried a plate and looked toward it. Can I see it now? I turned off the water. Wash your hands. I've been washing dishes. You've been drying. She gave me a look but washed her hands. We sat in the front room. I gave her the book. She held it carefully, one palm beneath the cracked binding. For several minutes, she turned pages without speaking. Tom's pencil appeared everywhere, question marks, underlines, tiny arguments. He really wrote in every book, she said. He thought authors needed supervision. She smiled. When she reached the passage from the wedding, she stopped. Mostly true. Her thumb rested beneath his note. Can I borrow this? The question surprised me. For how long? I don't know. A little while. It stays in the house. I know. My house, I clarified. Her expression shifted, but she nodded. Okay. I looked at the book in her hands. The last time she had chosen something from those pages, she had taken it from me at a microphone. Letting her carry the book out felt foolish and important. You can borrow it, I said. She looked up. Thank you. Don't fold corners. I'm not a criminal. You put coffee cups on books. One time. Tom saw you. Dad's dead. He remained angry. She held the book against her chest. I'll take care of it. I believed her. She carried it home in the paper bag that had held the satin slippers. The weeks after Christmas settled into a pattern neither of us had arranged. Sophie called 2 or 3 times a week. Before beginning a long conversation, she started asking, Do you have time? Sometimes I said no. The first time, she went quiet. Oh. Okay, I have book group. Right. Call me tomorrow? I will. I went to book group and called her the next day. The world did not end. I began going to Tuesday lunch regularly. I accepted Noreen's invitation to a Sunday matinee without checking my phone during intermission. At speech therapy, Marisol made me read a newspaper editorial aloud, then argue against it. The arguing helped more than the reading. Sophie stopped asking me to settle disagreements with Adam. I knew they still had them. Once while we were talking, I heard him say from across the rental, Ask your mother whether 2 lamps count as a lighting plan. Sophie shouted back, I'm not putting her in the middle. I smiled into the phone. Do 2 lamps count, she asked. No. I knew it. That isn't referee work. That's electricity. She laughed. The apartment repairs continued through January. Cabinets arrived late. The new floor had to be redone near the bathroom because one section lifted. Sophie sent photographs without asking me to contact anyone or help choose anything. Sometimes I wished she would ask. I began to understand that being respected could feel disappointingly similar to being left alone. Near the end of February, Sophie called while I was putting on my coat for lunch with Noreen. "We're moving back Saturday," she said. "That's good. It doesn't feel real. How's the tile?" "Beige." "Which beige?" "The one Adam approved." "You kept it?" A pause. "Yes." I smiled. "We're not doing a big housewarming," she continued. "I don't want a performance." "All right, but once we're settled, would you come for dinner?" "Of course. I mean, just you. Maybe Vivian another time. I'd like that. We'll figure out a night." She sounded nervous. I didn't ask why. They moved without my help. Adam called once to ask whether I had seen the screwdriver he'd used at my house. I told him to check the side pocket of his black work bag. It was there. Otherwise, they hired movers, carried their own boxes, and returned the furnished apartment key without a crisis. Sophie sent me a photograph of the brown sofa after they had emptied the room. In the picture, it tilted unmistakably left. "You were right," I wrote, "about the sofa, about surviving it." She sent a heart. The dinner invitation came 2 weeks later. Saturday at 6, Adam's cooking, so eat something first. I arrived at 6 with flowers from the grocery store. Not a centerpiece, no rosemary, just yellow tulips wrapped in plastic. Adam opened the door wearing an apron over a blue shirt. "You ate first, right?" "I brought emergency crackers." "Smart." The apartment looked different without open walls. Warm cream cabinets replaced the old dark ones. The controversial bathroom tile was visible from the hallway and looked, to me, exactly like every other beige tile. Sophie came from the kitchen. She hugged me before taking the flowers. "You came." This time, it didn't sound like surprise. 6 o'clock means 6. I know. The framed wedding photograph stood on a shelf in the living room. There was the chapel, Adam touching his forehead to Sophie's, Vivian laughing with Dana, and one photograph of Sophie and me. My silver blue dress looked almost gray under the lights. Sophie's arm was linked through mine. On the coffee table, beside 3 clean glasses, lay Tom's green book. A cream-colored ribbon marked the passage. Sophie saw me looking at it. "I was going to return it tonight," she said. "You used a ribbon." "I did not fold a corner. Your father approves." "I'm not sure he would, mostly." She smiled, but her hands tightened around the tulips. "I thought maybe after dinner," she said. I looked at the book, then at my daughter. After dinner, I agreed. Adam's dinner was better than his message had suggested. He had made chicken with lemon and olives, roasted potatoes, and green beans that Sophie claimed were undercooked. "They're crisp," Adam said. "They squeak. Vegetables should participate." Sophie bit another one and looked at me. "Squeaky." "I'm not refereeing beans." "Good boundary," Adam said. The dining room table was new, a round wooden one with only 3 chairs. A 4th had been ordered, Sophie explained, but the rental deposit and moving costs had forced them to delay several purchases. She didn't say it to punish me. She said it because I asked why one side of the table was empty. "I kind of like 3, Adam said. "No one can surprise us." "You invited my mother," Sophie told him. "That was scheduled. Their apartment carried evidence of compromise. 2 lamps lit the living room, which I did not comment on. The bathroom tile was warmer than it had looked in photographs, though I still would have called it beige. One cabinet door was slightly crooked. Sophie had noticed. I knew because she glanced at it whenever she entered the kitchen, but she had not made Adam adjust it during dinner. The tulips stood in a glass pitcher between us. No one mentioned the green book while we ate. We talked about Noreen's campaign against salads in jars. Adam described a coworker who had accidentally left a filter on during a video meeting and delivered quarterly projections with dog ears. Sophie told me Vivian had joined a yoga class and was furious that the instructor used the word journey. She says she's stretching, not crossing a continent, Sophie said. That sounds like Vivian. She also asked whether you still have the wedding pages. My fork stopped. What did you tell her? That I didn't know. They're in my nightstand. Sophie nodded. Why did she ask? She said she was cleaning out her email and found the rehearsal schedule. Your mother saves email? Vivian has dental appointment confirmations from 2011, Adam said. She believes deletion is how society loses history. Sophie rotated her water glass. I think she still feels guilty. She shouldn't. I told her that. Good. It was a small thing, But I noticed Sophie had not called me unkind for absolving Vivian while withholding the same from her. After dinner, Adam gathered the plates. "I'll do those," I said automatically. "No." It came out so firmly that all three of us paused. Then he smiled. "You are a guest? I can help. You brought crackers. They're still in my purse. Emergency preparedness is a contribution." Sophie rose. "I'll make coffee." I carried my water glass into the living room. The green book waited on the coffee table with its cream ribbon. I sat on the sofa. Sophie brought in 2 cups and set one near me. Oat milk, no sugar. She still knew my coffee, even after I had spent years knowing hers. Adam remained in the kitchen. Water ran. Plates knocked together. Sophie sat in the chair opposite me and lifted the book. "I didn't read the passage out loud," she said. "All right." I thought about it. "Why didn't you?" "It felt like it was yours. It isn't mine." "Your father didn't write it. You know what I mean." "I did." She rested the book on her knees. "Would you read it now?" There it was, the replacement moment, the corrected version. Mother restored to her assigned place after months of consequences. I looked at the ribbon. No. Sophie's fingers tightened against the cover. "Okay." She placed the book back on the table. No argument. No explanation of why it would be good for me. No look toward Adam for support. Just okay. I picked up my coffee. "I don't want another ceremony," I said. "I know. I don't want to perform forgiveness so you can know we're done." Her eyes filled, but she nodded. "I know that too." "Do you?" "I think so." She leaned forward, forearms against her knees. "I practiced an apology." "That sounds dangerous." It was. "Did you time it?" A small smile appeared. "No. But I edited it for several days." "Of course you did. I wrote one version that explained everything. I've heard the explanation." "I know. That's why I didn't bring it." Adam came in carrying his coffee. He looked between us. "Should I go back to the kitchen?" "You can sit," Sophie said. He sat in the 3rd chair. Sophie kept her eyes on me. "I'm sorry I took the reading from you," she said. "Not just because it embarrassed you or because I did it in front of people. I'm sorry I decided that your voice was a problem I was allowed to solve." The refrigerator hummed behind the kitchen wall. "I knew what you had done to get your voice back," she continued. "I sat in Marisol's office. I heard you practice. I asked you because I meant it when I said I wanted your voice there. Then I got scared, and I acted like being scared made the decision mine. I held the coffee cup with both hands. You told me the passage would be cut," I said. I lied. The word came without decoration. I knew if I said Vivian or Pastor Renee would read it, you might refuse. I knew if I made Dad's words the choice, you'd protect them. You were right. I knew I'd be right. Her mouth trembled. "That's what I'm most ashamed of. Not that I misunderstood you. I understood you perfectly. I knew you would take the hurt and still help me. I knew you'd come to the wedding. I knew you'd smile. I knew you'd let us move in afterward." Adam stared into his coffee. Sophie wiped beneath one eye. "I used the fact that you were safe to treat you like you couldn't leave." I looked at my daughter. For months, I had wanted a sentence like that. Now that it was here, it did not repair the chapel or put the pages back into my hands. It simply sat between us, true and painful, and finally hers. "I'm sorry," she said again. "I was wrong to do it." "Thank you." She breathed out. I set down my cup. "I taught you some of that." Sophie shook her head. "You don't have to make it your fault." "I'm not." "Good." "I'm saying I made being needed look like the only way I knew how to love you. After Eric left, after your father died, every time I felt useless or lonely, I found something you needed before you could ask. You helped me. I did. Sometimes because you needed help. Sometimes because I needed to be the person who gave it." She looked at her hands. "I still should have asked." "Yes." "And you still could have said no?" "Yes." "Would you have?" "No." A wet laugh escaped her. Then what do we do with that? We get better at asking and answering. That sounds simple. It has been extremely inconvenient so far. Adam smiled into his cup. Sophie's expression turned serious again. When we moved, I thought you wanted us out because you didn't love me the same. I loved you the same. I didn't like our relationship the same. She flinched, but stayed with me. I missed you, I said. I missed you too. I also enjoyed having my bathroom back. I knew it. You left wet towels everywhere. There were 2 hooks. There were 4 doors. Adam raised one hand. I told her about the doors. You hung yours over the chair, Sophie said. It was a dedicated towel chair. The tension loosened by 1 notch. Adam looked at me. I should have said something at the rehearsal. Sophie turned toward him, surprised. I knew what was happening, he said. I made one suggestion about the microphone and then became fascinated by the ceiling. You didn't make her decision, I said. No, but I helped the room accept it. Sophie put her hand over his. You apologized to me after, I reminded him. That was easier. Usually is. We sat without speaking. The silence was not comfortable, but no one rushed to fix it. Eventually, Adam stood. I made dessert. Sophie looked alarmed. You did? I bought dessert and transferred it to a plate. Marriage has improved you. He returned with 3 slices of chocolate cake that leaned more than Sophie's Christmas cake had. We ate them in the living room. The green book stayed closed. Conversation moved elsewhere. Sophie asked about the next book group selection. I told her Noreen had chosen a family saga involving a vineyard and 3 sisters, who all seemed to hate each other for reasons the author planned to reveal slowly. Do any of them narrate from the perspective of a horse? Adam asked. Not yet. Sophie wanted to know how I had met Noreen. I told her about a library fundraiser 20 years earlier when Noreen accused me of stealing her chair. You did steal it, Sophie said. I looked at her. She caught herself. Were you going to say you didn't? I was going to say there were no assigned chairs. Sorry, continue. I did. She listened through the whole story, including my pause when my throat dried and I needed coffee. She did not supply the name of the library director when I briefly forgot it. The name came back on its own. By 10, the tulips had begun opening in the warm apartment. Adam took our dessert plates to the kitchen. Sophie folded her legs beneath her in the chair. I don't expect things to go back, she said. Neither do I. I'm not sure what they're going to. Forward. She smiled at the old answer. Right. I reached for the green book. Sophie sat still. I opened to the ribbon. Tom's pencil line ran beneath the first sentence, dark at the beginning and lighter near the end. Mostly true weighted in the margin. I removed the ribbon and laid it on the table. You don't have to, Sophie said. I know. That was why I could. I began to read. The passage said that love was not proven by the room prepared for celebration, but by the room afterward. The cups left on tables, the chairs pushed out of place, the people no longer performing for company. It said a life together was made in returns, in apologies, without witnesses, in making room for the parts of another person that remained unfinished. My voice came out low. On the 3rd sentence, it caught. Sophie's hand moved against her knee, an old instinct rising. She did not reach for the page. I took a breath and continued. Near the end, my voice broke again. The pause stretched longer this time. I could hear the refrigerator, the faucet in the kitchen, Adam setting a plate into the drying rack. No one rescued me. Sophie waited. I found my breath. Then I read the last sentence exactly the way I wanted.